Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to another edition of Celtics Talk Radio Live post-game video chat with Igor and Daniel. This is episode number 9, and this is Los Angeles Clippers 116, Boston Celtics 102 video chat. Practically in this video chat, we will be discuss about the Celtics last 3 games. Since we defeated the Cleveland Cavaliers and since we talked about victory against Cleveland, the last video chat number 8. You can check it at our YouTube channel, Celtics Talk Radio. Subscribe to YouTube channel, Celtics Talk Radio channel, and you will receive our live post-game video chats. So tonight it's 7th March, 6:40 p.m. Eastern. So the Celtics are in the middle of West Conference road trip. After defeating Los Angeles Lakers 115-95 with 18 points from Isaiah Thomas and 8 assists and 8 rebounds from Brown, the Celtics had one terrible game, one stinker in Phoenix, one game that was just so ugly and so bad loss, 106-109 against one bad team such as Phoenix Suns, unexcusable loss, and the game we should have won, like Isaiah Thomas said. Isaiah Thomas did his job, 35 points, 5 assists, 10 rebounds, but he had the late game turnover. Crowder said that it's his mistake, but actually I think that it is Isaiah Thomas's mistake. After that lost ball at the end of the game, Tyler Ulis from Kentucky, ex-Kentucky point guard, who torched the Celtics the whole game, just drained the dagger, and the Celtics lost in the last seconds with the 3 after the turnover. The Celtics gave up 5 points in the last 11 seconds, which is unexcusable, something that I didn't see in a long time. Then the last night, the Celtics had 13 points lead in the third quarter, and then I think that we were out received 43 points after that. We had the second half meltdown. Isaiah Thomas 32 points, 5 assists, and 8 rebounds, and the Celtics are basically 1-2 at this road trip. What is worse, the Celtics lost, including the game in Chicago, 5 games out of the last 8. So that means that the Celtics are in the bad form, and arrow is pointing down. So we are going backwards, not upwards, sadly, after the All-Star break. All-Star breaks were never happy and good for Brad Stevens' teams. So to remind you, the last 8 games, we lost in Chicago, Butler free throws 103-104. Then Toronto came back after, I think, 17 points lead of the Celtics, and they destroyed us in the fourth. Similar as Clippers, 97-107 for Toronto. First game after All-Star break, 20 points and 5 assists from Thomas. Then we defeated Pistons in Auburn Hills in the last 2 minutes. Good execution, 104-98, 33 points Thomas, 5 assists Horford, and 11 rebounds from Crowder. Then the Celtics had one bad loss against Atlanta Hawks, team number 5, currently at the Eastern Conference, in TD Garden, 114-98. The game was stinker also, and it was reminder of the last year's playoff when Atlanta dominated every second, every area of every segment, every element of basketball games. 19 points from Thomas and 7 assists and 7 rebounds from Isaiah Thomas, but overall terrible game. Then we had the win against Cavaliers, 103-99, return of Avery Bradley. And also we demolished Los Angeles Lakers, 115-95. in Los Angeles, 18 points, Thomas, and 8 assists, 8 rebounds from Brown, but they are a terrible team. And then we lost from Phoenix Suns, March 15, Walking Stick Resort Arena, Phoenix, 109-106 for Phoenix Suns, 35 points and 5 assists from Thomas and 10 rebounds from Crowder. Finally, the Celtics lost 102-116, and 32 points from Thomas, 5 assists from Thomas, and 8 rebounds from Crowder. Overall, on this road trip, the Celtics are 1-2. The Celtics lost 3 out of last 5 games. And what is the worst? The Celtics are still struggling with the injuries. The last night, Jonas Jerebko was out after he was wearing the mask because of broken nose, and he finally get rid of that mask, and he was terrible with that mask. Now he caught a flu, and he missed the game in Los Angeles against the Clippers because of the flu. Avery Bradley missed the game in Phoenix alongside Al Horford. Avery Bradley with hamstring injury, and Al Horford left elbow injury, shooting elbow, and Al Horford missed the game against the Clippers too. Avery Bradley returned in the lineup against the Clippers, but he didn't have good game. Anyway, the game against the Clippers, we played without Jonas Jerebko and Al Horford, which is not excuse for terrible performance in the second half. And Al Horford should be back for Wednesday's game against the Golden State Warriors, and we hope finally to have full squad and to try to get a victory after terrible performance in the last 2 games. Now, like I said, we are going backwards. Cleveland Cavaliers lost the last 2 games. They are resting James, and we are not using this. Why? Because we are laying an eggs at the Western Conference trip. Cleveland is having 42-20, 68%. Boston Celtics 40 and 24, still number 2, 62%, and 3 games away from Cleveland. Washington 37-24, 61%, 4.5 games away from Cleveland, and 1.5 games away from Boston. I want to note that Washington is now tied with the Boston at the loss column, and they played 3 games less. They are on the West Conference trip too, and if they win the next 3 games, they can tie with us and even surpass us if we lose tomorrow in Oakland against Golden State Warriors. Toronto is number 5, 2.5 games away from us, and 5.5 games away from Cleveland. Toronto is 2 games more in the loss column. Atlanta is number 5, 8.5 games away from Cleveland, and 5.5 games away from us. I will stop there. The Celtics are getting backwards, and like I said, we missed Horford the last night, Danny. We will talk later about that game. But do you think that the Celtics have excuse for playing so terrible lately?
No, there is no excuse, for playing so badly lately. We can understand, the loss yesterday. Without Al Horford, it was going to be pretty difficult to beat the Clippers, knowing that they're a star-loaded team, one of the top teams in the Western Conference. But the game prior to that against Phoenix, there was no excuse for losing to that team, knowing Phoenix is one of the worst teams in the league overall. Especially knowing that even without Horford, without Avery Bradley, you had the lead late in that game and had the chance to win, and you blew it pretty much within the last 10 seconds of that game by giving up an easy layup, which was to Bledsoe, if I'm correct, and then the inbounding, you basically Crowder. Thomas is not paying attention. He forces the ball to Thomas, hoping that Thomas basically will take the ball and let the ball roll up the floor and, make it where the clock doesn't start until maybe he gets towards half court. But you got a man right there in front of Thomas. If you see Thomas is not clearly open, because of the fact that they're trying to pressure him, you don't go to Thomas in a position like that. You got other guys that you could be throwing to in that situation. If you can't get a clear entry, then play for the overtime period in this situation, knowing that thus far you basically have been able to get the route of being able to stay ahead. In my opinion, I felt they should have fouled on that last possession instead of letting Bledsoe get to the rim so easily, because you would have kept yourself with much more time available, and even if he does tie it at the line, you would still have more time. And of course, Brad Stevens could have talked to someone like Isaiah while the free throws were being made and probably made some sort of a play or something like that while the whole thing was being done. And if the guy misses a free throw, for all you know, then you're still ahead. But there's no excuse for losing to Phoenix, but yesterday's game, unfortunately, many people are pissed off. I'm pissed off, but I'm not blaming many of the players. If anything, I'm blaming the coach, Brad Stevens, for yesterday's loss due to a few things that ended up happening in that game. Of course, we'll be discussing it, as you said, what Isaiah Thomas had some statements made, which has been pretty controversial. It's been one of the major topics being said on sports radio out here in the Boston area. Stephen A. Smith, for example, and his co-host on the ESPN First Take were also debating Thomas's, comments where many people are feeling that Thomas threw Brad Stevens under the bus this morning, or should I say yesterday. That audio, Igor, we actually have it, and we'll be able to play it here on the video chat, so for people to hear basically and be able to hear what Thomas said. But but this whole thing right now, the team has to get back to being healthy. That's the first thing. This team has been pretty, consistent when they've played with an entire, roster. But I feel Brad Stevens truly has to go the route of deciding who his main 10 players are going to be and stick to those 10. Stop switching it each and every other game. Think about it. For a short period there, Gerald Green was getting a ton of minutes. Now, Gerald Green can't seem to even find the floor because Brad Stevens wants to give those minutes to James Young. And give it a couple games, James Young will be the one sitting, and he'll go back to Gerald Green. You got to stick with one of those guys so they get the feeling that they'll be playing each and every game, so they bring their A game each and every game. You can't be going the route of kicking them out, bringing them back in, kicking them out every other game, just because of the fact that you want to be experimenting, like Isaiah Thomas said. You got to go the route of experimenting at the beginning of the season, not towards the end of the season.
Okay, Danny, listen, if you want to play audio, just tell me and we will play it. I'm going with the more news, and like you said, this is the morning where Isaiah Thomas calls out Brad Stevens. On the heels of a nearly impossible loss to Phoenix Suns, the Celtics managed to find a way to lose the game. The Celtics defeated themselves practically. On the second half, down was enough to drive a player's mad. And beyond the obvious, Thomas apparently had another reason for frustration. This taste for some of the Celtics lineup choices in the third and the fourth quarter. By the way, to tell you and the listeners that I completely agree with Isaiah Thomas, and I will elaborate later when we discuss about the game. And the Thomas has right. Now, the different thing is, should he go publicly with it or not? We can discuss about that. But is Thomas correct? Thomas is 100% correct. And I confirmed it. Though he never openly stated his disagreements with any of the lineups, he hinted it with saying, we can be experimenting in game 64. You can watch the film, Thomas replied when pressed on the comments. You know what it is. Ask directly whether he mean on the lineups. Thomas met the question with what felt like telling silence. And I mean, all is clear in Thomas's comments. Now, without starters, Al Horford elbow, and he reserved Jonas Jerebko, he reserved Jonas Jerebko flew, the Celtics were team in the front court. They started with small group featured Jaylen Brown and Jay Crowder at forward slots, even against Los Angeles tough front court of Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan. So practically we had Jaylen Brown and Jay Crowder against Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan and Maurice Spikes. And Thomas likely opposed head coach Brad Stevens' rotations later in the game. We featured some of the quirky combinations. For example, later in the third quarter, the Stevens unveiled an unexperienced lineup. I think that lineup was never in the game, Danny. And again, you can play the audio when you're ready. That you said you have excellent. Now, that lineup was Terry Rozier, Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, James Young, and Jordan Mickey. Brown at 4, Jaylen Brown at 4, Jordan Mickey 5, James Young 3, Marcus Smart and Rozier guards. So the Celtics had not used once that lineup. The Celtics had not used once all season, according to NBA.com analytics. It's barely more than a minute. The Celtics committed 2 turnovers. Rozier missed a driving 4-footer, and the Clippers went on 8-0 run, thanks largely to Crawford 3-pointers. But it was not Crawford's credit for 8-0 run. It was credit to the Celtics lineup because we stopped defending and we stopped attacking the right way with that lineup. Now, we have the video that we cannot play, but we can play later audio. And anyway, for most part, I try to let Brad Stevens coach. He's very smart dude, and he does a wonderful job on the substitution patterns. But like tonight, I didn't say nothing to him. Maybe I should have, but it is what it is. We will figure it out. Now, the Globe. Bash League move, Isaiah. Bash League move. Did Brad Stevens roll out a never-before-seen lineup in a pivotal moment in the games? Yes, sure. He gambled and it backfired. But injuries to 2 key component players forced Stevens into experimentation. I disagree with it, and that is why Isaiah Thomas should keep his misguided criticism of his coach to himself. Stevens has earned the trust, and Isaiah should respect him to keep this sort of commentary away from the media. You have concerns about rotations. Fine. Walk up to Stevens and talk about that privately. This isn't the first time Isaiah bitched publicly about the coach. November, he criticized the staff for subbing him late in the fourth after the loss with the Warriors. And Isaiah, maybe this loss wouldn't hurt so badly if you caught the ball and didn't make turnover against the Suns. This is from the Globe. Now, I will stop then there. Danny, do you want to add something or maybe play video? Audio.
Well, if you want, we'll go to what Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman had to say before I give my thoughts, as they had their own personal opinions on whether or not it was right for Isaiah Thomas to say what he said. And it almost seems like they contradict what your buddies from the Boston Globe just said there. So, ladies and gentlemen, hold on a second here.
A night after losing to the Suns on a buzzer beater, the Celtics gave up 41 fourth-quarter points in a 116-102 loss to the Clippers, something Isaiah Thomas was not happy about. Quote, "We should have won this game. We should have won Sunday night in Phoenix. We can't be experimenting in Game 63. It's just the way we lost tonight. That was unacceptable. We lost the game in the last 15 minutes of the game. We played a really good game up until the last 15 minutes, and that's the players' fault, the coach's fault. That's everybody in this locker room's fault. We could have done a lot better." Stephen A. Isaiah Thomas calling everybody out. What do you make of his comments? Or do you have a problem with them?
Well, I don't have a problem with it, number one. I don't view it as him going at the Brad Stevens, but I do view him as him putting Brad Stevens and everybody on notice. We need to pay attention to what's going on here. You got to remember that the Boston Celtics and, the Washington Wizards are nip and tuck for the number 2 and 3 seed, respectfully. Assuming that the season ends that way, you have a situation where Game 7, a potential Game 7, and that's a series that could potentially go Game 7, would be on a home court of the number 2 seed. It's very, very important. You don't need to be taking games for granted. And if you're Isaiah Thomas, you're 27 years of age. Yes, you're somewhat of a defensive liability, but you're averaging 29.5 points a game. When Jamal Crawford, JC, my nickname for him is And1 for the Clippers, his brother can boogie on anybody, particularly when he gets hot. He's special. This dude catches fire last night. You got to a situation where you just knew you wasn't going to stop them. They go on a 21-7 run against Boston with Isaiah Thomas on the bench. You're 27 years of age. You got to have him out on that court, particularly when he wants to be out there. You got to put him on Austin Rivers if you have to, but do something. I mean, you got to do. You can't just have him on the bench. He's averaging 29.5 points a game. If nothing else, he can help stop the bleeding by what he does on the offensive end of the floor. And so in that regard, I think what we peel from this is that the playoffs are approaching. They hear the Washington Wizards nipping and tucking at their heels, and they recognize this is something that we got to take seriously, and we can't take games for granted. And even though we like Brad Stevens because he's Mr. Butler, he's very, very intelligent, and he's a bright young coach, I'm a fan of his. At the same time, you can't have a league MVP candidate averaging 34 minutes a game for you, by the way, at age 27, averaging 29.5 points a game, sitting on the bench at that time. You just can't do it.
Look, I love me some Isaiah Thomas. He probably shouldn't have said this publicly about the coach. I do think he's going at the coach. He's upset because he wasn't on the floor during the run, right, and where the Clippers come back. They had a 13-point lead. The Celtics did. And I understand his frustration. What was interesting to me is he said, for the most part, I let him coach. I let him coach. In other words, the reason Isaiah Thomas...
That's a key phrase right there.
At 5'9", is a star in MVP conversation is his self-view. He views himself as a star. He always has. He's always been underrated until this year. I loved him when he was in Sacramento. I wish the Lakers, I was doing radio at the time in L.A. I begged the Lakers to sign him on the air every day. You have to be amazed at what he's doing, but I'm not surprised that he's an excellent player. But really what's happening here, that's the takeaway. He sees himself as a star. Yep. He's kind of showing you he's alpha. He lets the coach do things. That's actually good news for the Celtics. What's really happening here, though, the big picture, Horford goes down with an injury, and they blow 2 late leads because they can't match up defensively. And the reason Isaiah's not on, though I agree with you, Stephen A., I'd keep him on the floor, but the reason he's not is because they need defensive help, so they put better defensive players on the floor and bigger players at his position on the floor, which is you can defend that call. I don't agree with it, but you can defend it. And if you're Isaiah Thomas, obviously you're going to be upset. So the big picture for Celtics fans, you got a star. He's an alpha. It's good news. Wait till Horford gets back. I think it'll right the ship.
Yeah, maybe don't tell the media, but you like the pit bull mentality.
The Wizards are a game and a half behind the Boston Celtics, but they are tied in the loss column. It's just that Boston has played 3 more games. Boston's 40-24. The Wizards are 37-24. So essentially, if the Wizards were to go on a 3-game winning streak, they're tied. That's a problem. And if you're Isaiah Thomas, why are the Boston Celtics 40-24? It's the number 1 reason.
Isaiah Thomas is the number 1
reason. There we go. He's the number 1 reason. So regardless of defensive liability, sometimes when folks are brilliant, Max, you understand, they're highly intellectual and stuff like that. They tend to overthink things at times, Max Kellerman. These are the kind of things that happen. The simplistic things in the world, they make far more complicated than it needs to be. Brad Stevens is a brilliant guy, a brilliant young coach. By the way, what level of brilliance is required to sit up there and look down the bench and say, Avery Bradley, Marcus Smart, Crowder, Al Horford, or do I take that guy right there that's averaging 29.5 points a game for me? Maybe I should I put him on the floor? It's not that complicated. It's not that complicated. It just isn't. It just isn't.
Okay, so you all heard what you all heard pretty much what Brad Stevens, or should I say what Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman had to say there in regards to the whole situation. Again, my whole thought about yesterday's game, you know, Isaiah Thomas had the right to basically call out Brad Stevens, but not for, you know, the main reasons you would think. You said, Igor, and of course, just so you're aware, Igor, we still can't see your picture. So you'll have to call back.
Yeah, no problem.
So it's, in my opinion, the big issue here, you know, on top of the fact that he kept going the route of going with lineups that were like kind of experimenting, there is one part of that game that people got to look at and say it's completely unacceptable for you to be going with that type of lineup in this type of position. If you recall, I believe you mentioned, I don't know if this was the lineup you ended up mentioning, he had Jaylen Brown along with Marcus Smart, Avery Bradley, Jay Crowder, and Terry Rozier at one point, which I believe was to start the fourth quarter or in the middle of the fourth quarter. And at that point, the LA Clippers were going with a lineup where they were going with, you know, Felton. They had Jamal Crawford in the game. But they had DeAndre Jordan still on the floor. And Maurice Spites. You're telling me that you're going to go the route of having your biggest guy on the court at that point being Jaylen Brown, and you actually think that he's going to have what it takes to go toe-to-toe with DeAndre Jordan, knowing what DeAndre Jordan basically think. Jordan had already been chewing up Tyler Zeller and already, you know, making a fool out of Kelly Olynyk. The only one we had saw thus far that night that was capable of really giving DeAndre Jordan any trouble was Amir Johnson. So you're going to tell me you're going to go with a lineup, okay, we're down, we need some offense and all of that, but come on, Brad Stevens, you're supposed to be a smart coach. You also got to realize that your offense, whatever you score, 3-pointers, 2-pointers, it ain't going to mean a damn thing if you ain't going to get any stops on the other end of the floor. And in this case, the Clippers did exactly what you would expect them to do. Every time down the floor, they kept giving the ball to DeAndre Jordan, and he kept laying it up or getting a bunch of easy dunks or and ones, you know, or free throw shots because he had somebody guarding him who was too small to basically go toe-to-toe. And the moment, you know, that Brad Stevens finally brought a big man in, we were already down not only double digits, but we had already wasted more than half the quarter pretty much in the fourth quarter, which made your chances of coming back in that game even less than likely than what it started at the very beginning of the quarter. And in this case, again, you don't go to Amir Johnson. You go to Kelly Olynyk in this case. Olynyk, who anybody who's been watching as of late, Olynyk looks like someone who's basically gone, you know, he's become a wuss when it comes to taking the three-pointer, as he doesn't really seem like he wants to take any threes whatsoever. And right now, he doesn't look, I've been saying in the group, Igor, the boy doesn't look like he can throw the ball into an ocean, let alone a hoop right now with the way he's been going, unless he's 2 feet from the basket. He's more likely to actually have the ball stolen or throw the ball away for a turnover with his passes than he is to actually make a basket further away than 2 feet from the hoop. And yet
you're talking about whom? James Young or Brown?
No, I'm talking about Kelly Olynyk right now.
We will talk about him later. Super. Okay,
you know, but I'm saying technically, you got Amir Johnson sitting on the floor. Amir Johnson has been more consistent as of late, hitting the three-pointers than Olynyk. You got to do something to get DeAndre Jordan out of the paint area and make it where he's got to guard somebody beyond the arc or at least outside the paint. Al Horford, that's where he comes into play, along with Amir Johnson, because both can hit the three-pointer. But if Olynyk wasn't willing to shoot any threes, which we saw that last night, it wasn't helping. Tyler Zeller, same thing. It's not helping. You know, so in my opinion, Brad Stevens, last night was a night that you do deserve to get questioned by Isaiah Thomas, because on top of the fact that, like you said, Igor, you used a lineup that have barely ever gotten any chance to play together whatsoever, so you don't know what you're going to do. and you're doing it against one of the top teams in the Western Conference. You want to do that? You do it against Phoenix. You do it against Philly. You do it against Brooklyn. You don't do it against a top 5 team like the Clippers who have superstar talent. And at the same time, you go the route of making sure, knowing that there's no Horford, you make sure you go to your next best big man to go toe-to-toe with DeAndre Jordan. You don't go to someone like Kelly Olynyk who's as skinny as a twig pretty much and can't guard anybody whatsoever and doesn't get respect from the refs. So yeah, Isaiah Thomas, people want to question him like the Boston Globe. You're wrong for questioning him because he had the right to question Brad Stevens in every sense of the word.
And in this case, I am by Stephen A. Smith. He said everything right, and tonight the Phoenix Suns are playing. So if the Phoenix Suns went on the Washington Wizards went on a 3-0 winning streak, and if we lose tomorrow in Oakland and Golden State are favorites, Washington Wizards are number 2. If we lose tomorrow in Oakland, Washington Wizards are number 2 seed, which means in the playoffs we would play deciding Game 7 of the second round series against Washington in Washington, which is really terrible. After all good things that we achieved in this season, it will be terrible ending if we slip down to position number 3 or 4 because we have injuries. Coach is resistant to play the best lineups. Coach is experimenting in the last 19 games. You cannot do that. Sorry, but you cannot do that. Or you can do that in the preseason. You can do that against the sub 50% teams. But again, against playoff teams or 50% and more wins teams, you cannot do that. Now, the other things, we will get back to the lineups, Danny, with a little more analysis. But right now, on the page 2, a cool story about Paul Pierce's friendship with equipped manager. Sometimes when Pierce felt like he could not miss, he would add three shoots to Connor's total to give him a chance. Pierce would still win, and he would let Connor know. That's why I wear that jersey, Connor said, and you wasn't. Connor insists that career sport is actually quite. Can you see me, Danny? But most of all, those shootouts help them maintain their unconscious connection. Okay, let's forget for a moment it's brutal last 20 minutes and enjoy the story of Paul Pierce's friendship with equipped manager. Who was the team's representative at his draft back when they needed someone to communicate the team's pick to the coach. George Plimpton job once too. While we forget the stuff, let's also forget about Rick Pitino, was the guy who that article and also has some great sites like this. I was a big and come to find out he was a big trash talker. And then he would have his days and he would beat. And some weeks he would consistently beat it and it would really piss him. And once when Pierce lost to Connor as the vision cameras were filming, he ripped off microphone and told Connor that they were moving the meter. After Pierce won that 2010 3-point shooting during the All-Star weekend, he was brimming with confidence. A few days later, him and all of the Celtics practice UCLA and defeated. So this is a good story about legend. Pierce. Another topic where Danny is in the cats of rivals genes. We talk about Butler and about George, and the were questioning, is it all true? Are we biased? Is sources reliable? But this is not like some source or anybody else is talking about that. It's Cleveland Cavaliers general manager David Griffin who said and believed that the team at one point during the trade deadline that the Boston Celtics might land both Zeller and Paul George. During a podcast appearance at ESPN, Zach Lowe fielded a question asking to report that the Cavaliers were on the fence and about whether the Celtics were going to acquire Zeller and George from Chicago and India. I don't think it was just Jimmy, said Griffin. There was a moment where I thought we had both Paul George and Chicago, and that was concerning. So, Daniel, this is very interesting. So, you cannot say after this that those stories were bullshit.
Again, we are looking at a situation where the Celtics, if it was for them to go after both Paul George and Butler, if they were to go that route, part of me feels, really, is it worth it? If you consider it,
Yeah.
Paul George, if you were going to get him, it was going to have to be basically, in my opinion, this, before the trade deadline, this season, knowing that really, he's already made his, his opinion and made his, intentions aware to everybody. And you're not going to give up everything that you got just for a rental. Danny Ainge already made that clear to everybody. I want somebody that's going to be here long term, not somebody that I'm going to be seeing walk away from me in less than a year or so. So Paul George, ladies and gentlemen, unless he decides to change his mind completely and agrees to a sign and trade type deal, forget about him. Forget about him because he is not going to be worth it in this situation. Jimmy Butler is a different story because of the fact that his contract is still going to have at least another year on top of next season once you get him, which means you still got 2 years left to maybe get something done with him. And you could still go after another big-name free agent if you get him, and depending on who you give up. But, in my opinion, it comes down to the people. If the Celtics right now don't make it past round 2, are we still going to see everybody fighting not to want to give up Jay Crowder or to give up Avery Bradley or to give up, Marcus Smart, those players, or give up Jaylen Brown or Rozier for a superstar? If it comes down to that, where we get eliminated in round 1, or we don't get past the Wizards or the Raptors in round 2 to get to the Cavaliers, then I am sorry. Get rid of whoever we need to in order to get the next big player over here and start getting yourself a loaded team. Because the only players on this team that I have said already that are not going to be tradable, are, in my opinion, Isaiah Thomas, Al Horford, and Marcus Smart. Everybody else, you can get them, package them up, and get them going. So, I'm sorry for the way people might actually feel about the whole situation. And they might feel that I'm, mistreating some of the people or some of the players and all of that. But, come on. The situation is obvious. If you can't actually prove, knowing that this season you got to get at least past 2 rounds to make yourself look as the top threat to the Cleveland Cavaliers, if you can't do it and actually get yourself to that position, then what in the world is it worth keeping all those guys for if you can't actually get that far?
Yeah. Can you see me now?
Yep.
Excellent. Listen, those are two different questions. What is the successful season? And we talk about that. In our shows and the season. For me, the successful season, and I'm not changing my opinion about it. No matter the results. Successful season is 52 and more wins and passing the first round. This is the goal to the season. Now, if we surpass Washington Wizards or Toronto Raptors in the second round, super. If we don't, if we give a fight in 6-7, it is not the end of the world. The season is still successful. But if we lose in the first round, it is not. We blew it in the last 20 games of the playoffs. This is my standpoint of view, and I will stick with it until the end of the season and beyond. We said it multiple times. The Celtics are not contenders. This is not the season where we are looking at the results and measuring the results. Yes, we are looking at the results, but the Celtics actually don't have the roster to compete with teams like Los Angeles Lakers, San Antonio Spurs, Golden State Warriors, and Cleveland Cavaliers in the series, the best of 7 series. Even Toronto now, with the addition of Jay Tucker and Serge Ibaka, and if Lowry is back for healthy, they will be favorites against us. I mean, let's be real. Let's be real. Now, back to what you said. I would not want the Celtics to get both George and Jimmy Butler at the trade deadline. I will elaborate you why. Really short, because I don't want to waste time. We have another topic. First of all, Paul George is more likely to go to Los Angeles Lakers after his contract is expired. He has 2 paths. He wants Ghana to be contenders and to sign with them, or wants to play with Los Angeles Lakers because he is the fan of Los Angeles Lakers. And hopefully, Paul George, Los Angeles Lakers can win 30 games that season. By the way, if we receive Paul George, we would give up assets, and he would end up walking away after 1.5 years. And he would say, goodbye, Jackass. I'm going to Los Angeles, and I was listening to the Los Angeles Lakers podcast, and they were saying, I'm praying for quote. I'm praying that the Celtics to make a huge offer for Paul George, and in the end, Paul George to walk away from them and come to Los Angeles. In this case, the reporter said, I would build him a statue at the Staples Center. This is from Lakers source. This is the main reason why I don't. Now, about Jimmy Butler, I'm not sure, again, when we are talking about basketball sense, Paul George has sense now, so I think that Butler is overall better player because Danny, you remember that we talk about matching with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, we have Kyrie Irving, Isaiah Thomas. Now, Crowder against LeBron James is not good matter. We must need somebody to match up with LeBron James on the both ends on the floor. Better matchup, my opinion, and better fit for the team is Paul George because of his ability to catch and shoot in the better percent than Jimmy Butler. And he's taller and he's better defender at the positions number 2 and 3 and even 4 in the lineups than Butler. Now, if you give up the assets, and it would take like 2 Brooklyn Nets picks, 2017 and 18. Those are 2 potential franchise players. Don't forget that we have 50% chance to land top 2 picks in this draft. This is Ball or this is Fultz. Those guys will be really, really good. And the Celtics could retain either one of them for the next 8 or 10 years. And they could become the franchise players. And at the 2018 draft, we have Doncic and the other players. That is another potential franchise player. And you would give up that for Paul George in 1.5 years and Jimmy Butler 2 years. So you are giving up 16 to 20 years of control of potential franchise players for 2 players and 3.5 years control. Excuse me, but I would not do that. And the third reason, if we give up, for example, Danny, 3 out of 4 top 4 players or young players, like let's say Crowder, Bradley, Smart, Brown. We would have to give up 3 or even 4 top players out of that core. Now, if we get George and Butler, we would not have any cap space. Here we go, our cap space. Gone. Vanished. Now, we should not go, we would not be able to go after big free agents at the summer. And don't forget, Gordon Hayward is free agent. I'm not saying that we will get him, but some experts are saying and thinking that we will get Gordon Hayward. And Gordon Hayward is upcoming star, Danny. He can become even better than Paul George and Butler. Kevin O'Connor from Ringer said that Utah Jazz will become contenders if they retain Hayward. So the Celtics can clear up the cap space to add maximum guy this summer and go after George. After Hayward, or Blake Griffin. So this way, Danny, no matter what happens in the playoffs, we have the choice. We can go to chase Hayward or Griffin. If we sign Hayward, we are good. We have assets to land another star besides Hayward and to become contenders. Now, we can just draft Fultz and add better bench players and continue rebuilding, okay, and wait for the next year. Or we can get back to Indiana and Chicago. And if we have number 1 pick, the cost would not be, the price would not be so high for those 2 players. This is why I didn't want the Celtics to make a trade now. The cost, the price will not be high at the draft night, that high for those 2 players. At the draft night, it will be cheaper. We could potentially, for example, retain Jaylen Brown or Smart. This is the difference. So the Celtics have multiple options, and you see, according to David Griffin, he has the good sources. He's general manager of our rivals. So you cannot say that those trade rumors were bullcrap. Right, Danny?
Yep, and again, people got to realize the Celtics trade chips are truly valuable, and they'll only get valuable once the draft, the lottery comes and takes place. That's one thing that the Chicago Bulls and the Pacers had to worry about when it came to dealing with us. That if for whatever reason they gave us, let's say, Paul George or Jimmy Butler, hoping that they get the number 1 pick from us, and then yet the lottery doesn't go in our favor and the pick becomes the number 4 pick, you just gave up your superstar player, your future for the next few years, technically for the number 4 player in the draft. And many people seem to be saying that really there are only 2 players this year in this draft that are capable of being superstar caliber players immediately, making that type of impact. The rest of them, it'll be, players who could be some big time role players, but none of them have that capability of becoming, the next LeBron. Only 2 of them have the capability of going to the LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Stephen Curry type, status in a couple years. So really, you got to know that you're guaranteed to get someone in that number 1 or number 2 range in order to give up those stars, which is why I said technically they were going to ask for an arm and a leg for those stars to basically be given. Now, I felt Indiana, them asking for as much as they did was ridiculous, knowing that, heck, Paul George is already telling you he wants out, that he's going to ditch you no matter whether you trade him or don't trade him, he's leaving the team. So whether you wait for his contract to expire or you trade him, he is leaving. So in my opinion, to ask for so much just for a player who's going to leave you once his contract was over was pretty ridiculous in my part. Larry Bird, for someone who basically played in the league and knows how the whole thing works, should have been a little bit smarter than that. You got a chance to get a top 4 pick guaranteed, and your player's telling you, I'm going to leave you, and you don't go that route. That made it now where technically, come this summer, once the lottery takes place, if the Celtics get the number 1 pick, you ain't going to be able to ask for no number 1 pick plus Bradley, plus Smart, and plus Crowder, or plus Brown, because now you only have 1 year left on George's contract. So you just made it where you're going to have to ask for a lot less because the Celtics are going to get a lot less in exchange as well. So you can't ask for as much. And at the same time, you can't keep him there with you because of the fact that you're going to lose him. So the Bulls are the only ones who can really ask for a pretty good package. And even them, in this case, you just wasted another year on Butler's contract, making it where technically you can't ask for much as well either. You can't ask for as much as you did in this year's trade deadline, especially if the pick becomes number 1, because now it's guaranteed if it becomes number 1, you can't use the excuse, what happens if it's number 4? If it's number 4, we're not going to get as good of a value as we're giving you with our player, so that's going to go down. But again, in this situation, the issue here is once again, how is Danny Ainge going to treat it? I'm someone that has said it many times. I feel Danny Ainge, unless he's someone that's completely, suckering the other team when it comes to these trades, he doesn't really want to go through with it. And unfortunately, Danny Ainge, you ain't going to be able to sucker each and every GM each and every time. You got away with it with the Brooklyn Nets because deep down that team is a pretty stupid team, from the ownership all the way down, so that was pretty understandable. But the moment you did that, everybody else was put on high alert when it came to dealing with you. You're going to have to pay and pay big time if you want this team to finally get back to being a championship contender. So, again, what's it going to take, Danny Ainge? Are you going to go now telling fans in the offseason, I don't want to give up Avery Bradley or any of our other stars, so it's the number 1 pick for Jimmy Butler? Hey, if you don't make it past round 1, make it past round 2, the only team, you said that you're fine, Igor, that you think a successful season is past round 1. In my opinion, you lose if you get past round 1, that means you got beat by either Washington or Toronto in all likelihood. That there proves that team, whoever beat you, is closer to being a bigger threat, though, to the Cavaliers. And that's the last thing you can afford. Now, maybe Toronto, You know, knowing that Toronto basically doesn't have the salary cap space to do anything this summer. So if you lose to them and Cleveland basically gets rid of Washington easily, then maybe you get something out of it, especially if you can last longer with Toronto and make it a 7-game series while Washington gets beat, say, in 4 or 5 games. But if you don't make it to at least the Eastern Conference Finals, in my opinion, then this season, yeah, you may have progressed a bit, but you failed in proving that you were the top threat to the Cavaliers and proving to those free agents that you should be coming to Boston if you want to have an easier path to the NBA Finals.
Okay, I mean, it is valid arguments again, but we must be realistic. Again, it depends on the Eastern Conference standing. At this point, I repeat that Toronto Raptors are ahead of us in talent. Washington Wizards are not ahead of us in talent, despite despite now they have better bench. Bojan Bogdanovic is playing great. I don't know about the Jennings. We will see the next 3 games. But Toronto Raptors, when Kyle Lowry is healthy, Danny, on the paper, they have better talent than us. Now, this is not excuse, but this is just reality. Now, about passing, I feel like we can surpass both Toronto and Washington, but we need the home court. We need the home court. And that is why this place number 2 is so important for us. If we had place number 1, this would be even better in potential matchup against Cleveland. And I still think that it is not realistic to beat the Cleveland. I just hope that we will give them a run. And again, if I have to choose, I would choose Washington Wizards as second round opponent, or better than Toronto Raptors, and we would need the home court advantage. And I think that we can surpass them. And this is just my opinion. Anyway, we will discuss is this season successful or not after the season ends. And I hope that we will pull together our forces. We will get back to playing great basketball again, and we will be ready for the playoffs. This is what's important. Good discussion, and we will continue this discussion, Danny, and you will prepare our listeners, dear listeners, the audio about Kevin O'Connor and Jay King talking about exactly the same thing that we are talking. David Griffin saying that he was afraid that the Boston Celtics would add both Jimmy Butler and Paul George at this trade deadline. Let's move to another topics, and we will discuss about the games too. So stay with us. I think that we have the interesting material. I don't know, but I'm listening to those chats, and I think we are discussing about the most important and the hottest topics when it's about the Celtics. That is our intention here at the Celtics Talk Radio. Let's move from these topics, and another interesting topic is in the last episode 159 with Warren Shaw, Daniel, we discussed about the Celtics loss in bidding war against Cleveland Cavaliers for Andrew Bogut, the big man, ex-champion with Golden State Warriors, then traded from Golden State Warriors and released from, bought out from Dallas. Now, one more thing from Jay King on this matter that we discussed, MassiveLive.com. Yes, Boston has blown 2 consecutive chances to pick up ground at the Cavs, but as we are at pains to point out here, this isn't just about this year. The Celtics definitely could have kept Jimmy Butler if they were willing to pay the Fairfax price. But those guys are not good managers. Let's be honest. Only exception GM that Chicago has ever had been kept out, the Hall of Famer, because Michael Jordan is in many ways a small and pretty man. So Paxton is not good GM. They will eventually settle for Boston's price on Butler, assuming Boston still wants him, and Boston's price is going to go down. Let's not forget, there were people saying that who were upset why the Boston didn't trade the last year for Al Horford, and look how that turned out now. Finally, in this intro, Bogut 58 seconds stint with the Cavs. The Cleveland Cavaliers acquisition of veteran center Andrew Bogut ranked as one of the best pickups of the NBA annual waiver deadline. While 32 years old, Bogut was far away from stellar before he strayed away from the Dallas Mavericks. A non-ancient big man with long history of defensive excellency do not often become available at league minimum prices. But Bogut's season with the Cavaliers could now be over before it started. He made debut with the team Monday against the Heat, replacing Thompson, 37 seconds mark in the first. But with 11:36 in the second, Bogut had to be carried out of the court. He injured his left leg, attempting to close out the Heat forward, Oscar White. And last episode, I mentioned that Bogut is good player but injury prone. By my guess, that fractured tibia is minimum the fourth bone is broken. He broke vertebra 2009, wrist 2010, ankle 2012, and tibia in 2017. This is fourth bone that Bogut broke. Not to mention the tendon and ligament damage he suffered, and he will be 4 or 5 months out, and this guy has definitely given up his body to the game. So, in my opinion, the season is over, and I wish him to return to the court, but we will see about that the next season. So, at the end, it turned out to be good that we lost the bidding war for Bogut. What do you think?
This is why I say poetic justice, Igor. Poetic justice. You got Bogut, who immediately went saying one thing when it came to him wanting to go to free agency after being traded, and then basically showed how much of a hypocrite he was and did the total opposite to go get a chance to play with the Cavaliers, even though he knew pretty much that the only reason he was going to get a chance to play right now was because of the injury right now to Kevin Love. We said that on our on our radio show. We said it on a previous video chat. And then now the first game you get the opportunity to play, you end up injured against the Miami Heat, a team that's now beaten LeBron in them 2 games in a row. And ladies and gentlemen, that is no fluke, because they beat them the first time without LeBron and Irving. So people were saying there's no LeBron, no Irving, they're resting them, it means nothing. Well, you played yesterday with LeBron and Irving, and you still lost in this case. So that shows right there that all these...
I would like to see first round matchup Cleveland against Miami. So go Miami.
So that right there proves, though, that all these top teams basically are capable of throwing up a stinker when at any point. So Celtic fans, when it comes to our teams throwing up a stinker, you just got to look at the Cavaliers, the Golden State Warriors, and see if they can do it. We can certainly do it as well. But again, you end up going to Cleveland after showing how much of a hypocrite you are, and you suffer an injury like that, just banging your knee with the other guy, trying to go after the ball. It's unfortunate for him, but again, the main thing is that he wanted a ring. So now if the Cavaliers win, he still gets the ring basically because he got to play at least for some period with the team, but still, that to me is pretty much a sign that, they're telling him, you basically, there's another force out there telling him you made the wrong decision and you chose the wrong team.
Yeah. I mean, again, I wish him. We are not wishing anybody anything wrong, and I wish him the quick recovery. And at the same time, it means that Cavaliers will have potentially to go after another big man. Daniel, my material closed, so I will give the word to you until I reopen it. I mean, at the free agency market, you are having right now, and this is the same issue. I mean, the same case with the same case with the Celtics. If we decide to go after big men, but I think that now it's almost impossible. But I don't know if Cavaliers will go after another big man, and practically on the free agency market, you are having Daniel only Mike Scott from Atlanta, Jared Salinger, Terrence Jones signed with the Bucks, and I don't know. The two other names were mentioned, but they are not top names. So what do you think Cavaliers will do? Because we know that the Queen James wants more help.
Yeah, we all know LeBron James is going to be complaining at some point when the team is having issues, and they'll probably look for somebody because, again, we all know what this is. Every free agent that's out there is looking to jump on the bandwagon, whether it's the Golden State bandwagon or the Cleveland bandwagon, to try and basically get take the road of easy street right to the NBA championship, which is why, 28 other teams, like I said, the victory we got over the Cavaliers last week should have, was us pretty much trying to tell everybody this is a 30-team league, not a 2-team league. So don't forget that, that there's 28 other teams that you could be looking to sign up with and try to see if you got what it takes to get that team over the edge and knock one of those two teams off, instead of running to those same two teams and making it where every other team pretty much that's in the league that's not part of those top two teams doesn't have a shot to actually making it anywhere. So, and LeBron, he's going to complain. At some point, he's probably going to complain that Deron Williams is not good enough and he's going to want another point guard. He's going to complain that they need another small forward. Again, LeBron gets, whatever he wants, he gets pretty much. That's the way it works in this league. So,
yes.
The question is now, which big man
Golden State Warriors too.
Yeah, the Golden State Warriors as well. So the question now is, which big man out there on the free agent market is going to go looking to kiss the rear end of LeBron James first? Whichever one is willing to go that route, take the nice big major pay cut in order to basically show LeBron, your Royal Highness, I'm here to serve you. Pretty much act like he's like a damn pharaoh. Whichever one is willing to go that route is the one that's going to basically get the right to go playing for them. And of course, Bogut, he'll get waived, in order to make the roster spot available. But still, each and every one of these players, it's going to be interesting because we all know, Igor, once the season's over, Bogut, Deron Williams, all these guys who went signing with Cleveland, LeBron and the rest of the team, they're just going to give him a nice kick in the rear end and say, it was nice knowing you. Go enjoy your career somewhere else, you know. So you ended up going over there pretty much just for a few months of work for what? Just to get LeBron James another ring and just to basically get sent out right after that.
Yeah. Still trying to reopen my material. I wanted to talk now until we are waiting about the schedule. And I know that you gather intelligence about the schedule on the top 4 teams. I talk about that in the last show, 159, and that topic is even more accurate now that we are tied in the loss column with the Washington Wizards 24 games. Yes, the Celtics the Celtics have won 40 games, and the Wizards won 37 games. They are playing tonight, and Daniel, actually, you can check while I'm talking about the result. I think that they are playing in Phoenix or somewhere at the West. I'm talking about the Wizards, or maybe they're playing later tonight.
Yeah, the Suns are the Wizards are playing at the Suns tonight, 9 o'clock Eastern time.
9 o'clock Eastern time. So we will inform you in our next episodes or at our page about those results. We will be in Celtics fans forum. Still waiting for that. And finally, my board had mercy on me, so I can find the material that I gathered about the schedule. And I know, Danny, that you gathered the material about the schedules, and you're checking on the magic numbers. All those numbers you can see only at our page, We Believe in Celtics Fans Forum, and that is why you must log into the Facebook and our page, and you will be able to check on every latest results, calculations, news, injury reports. Anyway, the schedule analysis of the top 4 teams. Cavaliers are about to pay how home. Remember that I said that 2 shows ago on our chat and on our show. The Cavaliers are about to pay for how heavy home their schedule was in the first 2 months, because 12 of their next 16 games are on the road, and they lost the 2 games against Miami, and they have league high 7 remaining back-to-backs. Both of their remaining games, including the second place Celtics, they lost 1, and they have another game in Boston. So guess what, Danny? Intelligence that we gathered were correct, and they lost those games. The next team is Celtics. Celtics are in the middle of 5 games road trip. They defeated Lakers and lost, sadly, from Suns and Clippers. Now they are waiting the games against Golden State Warriors and Denver Nuggets. And we will talk about that at the end of the show, about those 2 next games. Now, after we finish this road trip, we will be heading for the stretch of 11 out of final 16 games at TD Garden. And the 3 of their final 5 road games are in Brooklyn, Philadelphia, and New York. And the Boston Celtics are 7-1 against Brooklyn, Philadelphia, and New York at the away game. Despite the absence of Kyle Lowry, Raptors will have chance to climb towards the top 10 in defensive efficiency, because the Raptors rank 17th on the defensive efficiency heading into March. They are allowing 0.4 points more per 100 possession than 12th ranked Clippers, and they are playing only 3 games out of remaining 22 with the top 10 offenses. 2 of those 3 games were without against the Wizards, so practically they have only 1 game left against top 10 offenses in the NBA, and that is the Cleveland game. In between the Cleveland and Wizards, the Raptors will have 11 out of 19 games with the bottom 10 offenses. So they will have the chance. The Raptors will have the stretch of 11 out of 19 games are with the top 10, bottom 10 offenses. So only Nets have the easier schedule based of opponing offenses. So we can say that Raptors are having second easier schedule out of top 4 teams. Cavaliers are having the toughest schedule. Now, the Wizards have the league's most road-heavy remaining schedule. They have 16 out of 24 games away from Verizon Center. They have 2 5-game trips out of the West. They are currently at the road trip at the West. And the first road trip, including 2 back-to-back games, and tonight and tomorrow. And the second road trip, beginning with the second game the second trip is beginning with the home road back-to-back game in Cleveland. So then they escaped the other night the loss because they defeated Orlando after losing by 17 points, and in that game practically Aaron Gordon from Orlando missed the last seconds runner, or I should say the floater for the Magic win. So they had luck in Orlando the other night, and the Celtics didn't have luck in Phoenix. But the point is that Cleveland is having the toughest schedule, then Washington, then Toronto, then Celtics the easiest schedule in the last 19 or 20 games. Now to continue with one more stuff, before I give you the word, predictions from the experts. They are saying that the Cleveland will be first, 55-27, despite injuries to Kevin Love, projected to play 11 games but with limited minutes, and J.R. Smith, projected to play 14 minutes, and with additions of Bogut and Deron Williams. Bogut is out. They are still rated as the best team in the Eastern Conference from the remainder of the season. This is from ESPN Insiders. They earned the number 1 seed in ESPN predictions, 55 wins in more than 75% of all simulations. Now, Boston Celtics number 2. After Cleveland Cavaliers win, we're projected to have 53-29 record. After the win of Cavaliers, that boosted the chances to go up at the standings, but we blew it up with the 2 consecutive losses. And number 3 are the Wizards, etc., etc. It is not important right now. Number 3 Wizards, number 4 Raptors, number 5 Atlanta. This is the predictions from ESPN. Now, this is not important. Do you want to add something on this schedule analysis and predictions? Educate predictions.
Well, again, right now everybody seems to be thinking that it's going to be the Wizards that are going to be the biggest threat to the Celtics right now. They're saying we should be forgetting the Cleveland Cavaliers, for example, and for the number 1 seed. But if anybody really pays attention to the schedule like the way I do, and the magic numbers, the tiebreakers, and again the information that Igor was referring to, ladies and gentlemen, is if you go into the Facebook page, the Weebly Green Celtics Fan Forum Facebook page, I have magic numbers that refers to how many wins or losses a team needs to eliminate another. That includes the tiebreaker situation, so you know who's got the tiebreaker over who. But right now, when it comes to the Celtics and the Wizards, because it looks like the Wizards right now are the team we really do got to be focusing on more than anything, you got to look at it like this. The Wizards' schedule, as we have said, Igor, they've had it easy when it comes to injuries compared to us. There hasn't been much of an issue with them. But the schedule is going to get a little bit more difficult for them in just a few short days. Come the 15th of March is when things are going to get interesting. And that's where the Celtics are going to have to start taking advantage. So, come the 15th of March, the rest of the season, the Washington Wizards are going to have 8 games remaining versus current playoff teams, 2 of which are at home. The rest of them are all on the road. You got Chicago and Atlanta at home. You got road games against the Detroit Pistons, the Golden State Warriors, the Utah Jazz, the Los Angeles Clippers, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and, of course, against us here in Boston. They got 3 back-to-backs left this season, one that has them playing in Chicago on the first night and then at the Charlotte Hornets the second night. Another one that has them playing the Brooklyn Nets in Washington. Then the next night they got to play LeBron and company in Cleveland. And then the third one has them playing the Los Angeles Lakers in L.A. the first night. And then the next night they got to play the Clippers in the same building. So think about it, Igor. We got to play the Warriors tomorrow night. And, of course, everybody's pretty much looking at it as though it's a guaranteed loss. Celtic fans, unless you think the Washington Wizards are going to beat the Golden State Warriors later on this season, we can pretty much say that's a guaranteed loss for them as well. So tomorrow's loss shouldn't really worry you whatsoever, unless the Wizards do pick up a win there. 10 of their last 16 games, Igor, after the 15th, are all on the road. So if the Celtics manage to keep ahead of them, or at least tied, come the 15th of March, they'll be in pretty good position. The Celtics, come the 15th, would have only 4 games left versus playoff teams, 3 of which are here in Boston. Washington, Indy, Cleveland, 1 on the road, which is against the Atlanta Hawks. They would have only 2 back-to-backs against one that has them playing in Philly on the first night, then against Washington here in Boston the next night. Then the last one, which is the one that probably would be a little bit more worrisome, has them playing LeBron James and the Cavaliers here in Boston. Then they got to travel to play the Hawks in Atlanta the very next night. The Celtics, though, the last 15 games for them, only 5 of them are on the road. So 10 of the last 15 for the Celtics come the 15th are here in Boston. So pretty much if you can manage to stay tied with the Wizards or even ahead of them if that happens, come the 15th of March, you're going to be in pretty good position to actually go ahead and take that number 2 spot. The only thing that will probably be derailing you is, again, if you overlook some of these teams like you did to the Atlanta Hawks, like you did possibly to the Phoenix Suns, or if the injuries continue to basically screw us up, because the injuries have been the biggest issue of all.
Yeah. Okay, and just to add on your elaboration that Wizards are 11-15 at the road. The Celtics will have 11 out of 16 games at the road in Boston. And out of those 5 games at the road, we have the games against Knicks, Philly, and New Jersey Nets. And with Knicks, Philly, and New Jersey Nets, we are 7-1. So we have really, all the chances to, all the reasons to be confident that Danny, we will be successful and we will get that position number 2. And that position number 2 is crucial for our second round playoff series, potential second round playoff series. Now let's get back. Let's get to the another topics that is Lederman. Lederman is saying. Lederman is saying. Just a second. The Celtics discover elite lineup in Sunday's loss. Sunday's loss from the Suns felt like a swift blow to nether region, but the Stevens may be able to take some advantage out of it because the Celtics starting lineup: Isaiah Thomas, Jaylen Brown, Jay Crowder, Jonas Jerebko, and Amir Johnson. I repeat: Thomas, Brown, Jay Crowder, Jerebko, and Johnson once again proved to be sneaky good 5-man unit for the Celtics. For the game, that lineup to be named later, they played in Phoenix 15 minutes with impressive 132.6 offensive rating, 31.2 net rating, and surprisingly 56.3 rebounds. I will repeat: 132.6 offensive rating, 31.2 net rating, and surprisingly 56.3 rebounding percent. Now, that lineup has now played total of 40 minutes together this season over the 5 games. It boasts a plus 40.1 net rating, which it qualified for the NBA leaderboard. They are plus 40 net rating, and they are top 10 best lineups in the NBA. They are 12 minutes short of the cutoff. That lineup would be the best in the entire league. And that's right, better than any Golden State Warriors lineup, nuclear or otherwise. And as you can see, this lineup needs a name. Of the 13-man units that played 40-plus minutes with the Celtics, they have the best offensive rating, net rating, defensive rebounding percent, true shooting percent, and assist turnover rate. A lineup to be named later: Thomas, Brown, Crowder, Jerebko, Johnson. They played 5 games, minutes played 40 minutes, offensive rating 138, defensive rating 97.9, net rating plus 40.1, effective field goal percent 62.3%, rebounding percent 54.2%, and the Celtics are 4-1 in games with the deployed unit. This unit works because it surrounds Isaiah Thomas with length and shooting, providing him with the spacing he needs to drive in the hoop while not sacrificing anything out of the defensive end. This lineup has also taken care of the ball, average 6.2 turnovers per 100 possession, which is the fewest out of every lineup. So does this mean that the Stevens should stick to this starting lineup without Bradley or Horford? No, it doesn't. 40 minutes over 5 games is too small sample size to justify benching 2 of the 5 best players. What does it mean? However, that the Stevens has one super effective lineup, he can turn it in the next 19 games of regular season, and maybe even beyond that in the playoffs. What do you think about that lineup, Daniel?
Well, in my opinion, one thing about that lineup is that they're capable of really putting on the defensive pressure, which is one reason why we see how good they can be. That you mentioned, even better than what maybe something we can see out of Golden State at some point. We got to remember that with Golden State, a lot of these other teams, they don't defend whatsoever. They just look to beat you 140 to 130, something like that. The Celtics are, everything for Brad Stevens. He looks more for the defensive pressure. And whenever you have a lineup where you can put guys, like that, especially if Avery Bradley's a part of it. Avery Bradley, look at what we've seen from him just since he's returned. You saw him shut down Kyrie Irving in what was one of the game-winning play pretty much. You've seen him throughout his career manage to shut down many other bigger names than Kyrie Irving, whether it be Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade, players of that caliber. But the thing is that we need to make sure that thing has to be done consistently. Brad Stevens, lineups like that have to be what he goes to on a consistent basis. A lineup like that, of course, not everybody was available yesterday, which was the problem. But a lineup like that is what we got to see in a game like yesterday, where you're going at it with superstars. Brad Stevens has to be willing to go to that lineup more often because of what it's capable of doing on both ends of the floor.
Okay, and once again, I'm not implying, and I don't want the Celtics now to change the starting lineup, because it is proven that the starting lineup, Daniel, of Thomas, Bradley, Jay Crowder, and Al Horford and Amir Johnson is the best starting lineup. I agree with it. And you need Kelly Olynyk from the bench on the more consistent basis, yeah, but you need Kelly Olynyk from the bench. So about Kelly Olynyk, when we mentioned Kelly Olynyk, I want to find article and discuss about him, because he is going to be the free agent this summer. He is going to be a restricted free agent, or if Boston Celtics, decline their qualifying offer for him, which is, Daniel, if I'm correct, around 7.9 millions. You will correct me. So if we decline that offer, Kelly Olynyk will be unrestricted free agent. My personal opinion is that Boston Celtics will keep Kelly Olynyk. I can see Boston Celtics retain Kelly Olynyk for the price between $8 and $10 million, unless they catch a bigger fish, unless they find somebody else who is more established and better player overall. Unless they find some better player, and the Celtics will search for bigger fish, to say this way. Yeah, and free agents, Danny, are Mike Scott, Luis Scola, Jared Salinger, Larry Sanders. Those are top 4 free agents, power forwards or centers. Scott, Scola, Salinger, and Larry Sanders. We will see if Cavaliers or Celtics would add, if the Celtics or Cavaliers will add another big man. Cavaliers, maybe. The Celtics, I really doubt in it, because, as Danny Ainge has said, the Celtics are giving the minutes to the youth. And the second thing is, Daniel, they don't want, as Danny Ainge said, they don't want some center to take away the minutes from the young guys like Jordan Mickey or Jaylen Brown or whomever. Now it is right time to discuss about Kelly Olynyk. Just a minute. If you remember, Daniel and dear listeners and viewers, Celtics Talk Radio discussed at the beginning of the season or in the first month of the season, I cannot remember right now the exact show. We discussed, Danny, about Kelly Olynyk not receiving an extension prior to the season, which means that the Celtics want cap space, and they want roster and cap flexibility because they want to chase the bigger fish than Kelly Olynyk. And as we mentioned previously, we want to go after Blake Griffin or Hayward if we clear the cap space. Now, Kelly Olynyk proved that decision to be true. I consider him very important. Not to get me wrong, Danny and the guys. I'm Kelly Olynyk guy. Yes, we missed on Giannis Antetokounmpo from at that draft, and the Celtics fans will never forget. Some of the Celtics fans will never forget to Danny Ainge that he has chosen Kelly Olynyk over Giannis Antetokounmpo. But Daniel consistency is hard to find for Kelly Olynyk. Now it has been yet another year down for Kelly Olynyk. Will consistency ever come? Kelly Olynyk was not offered any extension before the season began. Though he acknowledged he didn't expect one, which means his days in green jersey are numbered. Now, how do Celtics fans feel about it? It all depends on when you ask them. If you ask them today, they would set an eye the thought of moving on from Olynyk. If you ask them in a few weeks before All-Star break, they may have offer you another answer. There lies the problem: consistency. In the 4 seasons with the Celtics, now they have been all filled with inconsistency. At his best, he is capable of filling that 6th or 7th big man role. He is sharp shooting big who can stretch the floor and contribute 10 plus points per game. When he is in the form, Olynyk can be a valuable piece. At his worst, like the last 2 games, he appears overwhelmed both physically and athletically, and he is one of the worst player at the court. There is nothing more frustrating than watching 7-footer who is uncomfortable playing around the basket. Though he has not preferred, this is not his preferred style of playing the center and boxing out, there is no excuse for Olynyk with his size, 7-footer, to be as soft as he's under the basket. He needs to be stronger, more aggressive with the ball in his hands, down low, and it is if he's unsure of himself and his ability around the basket. Now he hesitates too often and goes up too often. While rebounding is not conducive to his style of playing, he should be better at given his heights in rebounding. Now Olynyk is maddening hot and cold. His performance over the last month, so in career, is so and so. For example, on February 5th, Olynyk provided 13 points in 22 minutes against Los Angeles Clippers. That kicked off 7-game stretch in which Olynyk is 14.5 points, 6.7 rebounds, and shooting 62% from the floor and 50% from the three. This is fantastic. Now, in the 7 games since that stretch, Olynyk is average 5 points, shooting 33% from the field, and made just one of 12 3-point attempts. Olynyk has proved that he's capable of playing at the NBA level. Yes, his talent isn't an issue. It's his Jekyll and Hyde tendencies. He tends to disappear for weeks at a time, leading to many wonder why he's on the floor. Then, just as you are about to write him off, he goes on a hot streak, and that shows he belongs to NBA. Now, in the couple of years of career, inconsistency is what he showed. And Olynyk still struggling with inconsistency. And yes, there have been some injuries that kept him on the floor extendedly, like shoulder injury. But, this is not excuse. Health has no bearing on Olynyk this year. If Olynyk manages to appear in 14 of the Boston final 18 games, it will be the most games he played since the rookie season. He missed the first 6 games of the season. He missed just 1 game since, and despite enjoying his healthiness, Olynyk's numbers have regressed from last year. While he is on the pace for posting career-high field goal percentage, his three-pointer shooting, free throw shooting overall has dropped from the last year. He has the ability to bring crowd to his feet, but he is not reaching his potential. As Olynyk plays out of the final months of his rookie contract, his future with the Boston remains unclear. For the second consecutive year, the Celtics will enter free agency, and like I said, if we decline to make a qualified offer, we can save some cap space. It is no secret that Stevens loves the big who can stretch the floor. And I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, I can see him stick around if we don't find the better player. But his inconsistency is very, very big problem. What is your take on Kelly Olynyk and his contract situation?
Well, I agree with you 100%. Technically, we just got to look at what we've seen the last few games. You know, a game like last night is a fine example of what Celtic fans have an issue with Kelly Olynyk for. A game like last night where you're going at it with a center in DeAndre Jordan, who we all know he's like Dwight Howard, he's like Shaquille O'Neal, whoever you want to compare him to. He's one of those guys that likes to sit in the paint and just wait for the blocks. He wants to be a blocking machine pretty much. The only way that you make it where he is ineffective when it comes to that and effective when it comes to his rebounding is that you got to get him out of the paint. And the only way to do that is to make it where he's got to guard you, taking your jumpers and taking your three-pointers. And you know for a fact, if Al Horford would have been in that game last night, Horford would have been taking the three-pointers because he knows, even if I don't make them, I got to basically let this guy think that they're going to go in. And eventually, at some point, if it does go in, that's going to have him worrying. If he gets one shot in, what happens if he starts nailing them the rest of the game? I can't afford to let Horford or any other Celtic big for that matter stay wide open from beyond the three-point line, nailing the three-pointers because I want to get the rebounds for my team, or I want to stop Isaiah Thomas or Marcus Smart or Bradley or Rozier from getting to the rim for layups. But Kelly Olynyk, like I said, the boy as of late has not been able to put the ball into the ocean, let alone a hoop, unless he's right next to the hoop itself. And that is becoming a major problem, and it's going to be a major problem the rest of the way when you go at it with some of these teams that have those bigs whether it be the Cavaliers with Tristan Thompson, for example, whether it be you're going at it, against Dwight Howard, any of those teams that have those type of bigs that are, guys that like to sit in the paint all day looking for the, blocking, the only way to make them ineffective is to basically take them out of their comfort zone. And Olynyk and Horford are the best two players on this team capable of doing that. But unlike Horford, who will keep shooting even if he's not making them in until he sees them go in, Olynyk, he has completely chickened out. He has gotten to a point now where he's not even willing to take a three-point shot. He's not willing to take any jumpers. Heck, he doesn't really even seem like he wants to shoot any free throws. So you got him now trying to get everything from inside the paint, trying to make moves to get layups. And even with that, it's becoming a problem because really, a game like yesterday against Jordan, you saw several times if you was watching it, he was in a position where the moment he got Jordan put on him and Jordan was right there to stop his shot, Olynyk either A, was trapped and didn't make the extra pass, which led to a 24-second violation on one of those plays, or he was making a move and got called for a travel, or he would make a pass but pass it to somebody who was covered and the ball was stolen. You got to be in a position where you got to start doing what brought you to this league to begin with. You were brought to this league and chosen by the Celtics because of your ability to nail the three-pointer. And that's what's made you one of the top 7 players on this team. Like I said, if you're not going to go the route of actually doing what we got you brought here for, then sit your ass on the bench and let's give your minutes to Jordan Mickey.
Yeah.
Because at least with Jordan Mickey, people will tell me, Kelly Olynyk, Jordan Mickey might not have the offensive ability that Olynyk does, but we know, and I know you will agree with me on this, Igor, Jordan Mickey is 10 times better on defense than what Kelly Olynyk is. At this point, Jordan Mickey will know is someone that you'll see him go toe-to-toe with some of these guys and fight for that rebound. Olynyk, he sees a big man come from another team. He's not going to fight and bang with them in order to go for the ball. If anything, he lets them get the ball and then tries to go after them after the ball has already been gotten, and it leads to a bunch of and ones. He does not go in as the aggressor. He's not assertive enough when it comes to his time on the court. So in my opinion, Brad Stevens has got to go and do something, maybe send the boy to a therapist, something like that, and see what happened to the Olynyk that we were basically seeing before the All-Star break. Because that's the Olynyk we need the rest of the way here. If you're not going to go shooting those three-pointers or shooting those jumpers to actually help Isaiah Thomas and the rest of the guys get a clear lane to the hoop, then we don't need you. We'll sit you down and let Jordan Mickey start getting some minutes and let him basically get the root of making sure, at least on the defensive end, we're not giving anything up. Because with you, not only are you basically putting us at a disadvantage on the defense, on the offense, you're also making it an issue on the defense for us as well.
Listen, don't forget, Danny and the guys, that the next year we will have on the team, and I'm really happy to see Ante Žižić, who will be on the rookie contract, and he can rebound, he can score, and hopefully he can be the backup center of the future alongside Al Horford. So the next year he will be, hopefully he is good rebounder, and hopefully he is the answer to all our prayers and thoughts about the rebounding and the problems that we are having in all defense, because he's good shoot blocker too. And again, he can play pick and roll defense too. Now up to the next topics, and this is the topic of Jaylen Brown. This is not; those statistics are not don't include And then you can add potentially some fresh new statistics of Brown. Brown was average before Phoenix game in the last 5 games, 13 points, 5 rebounds on 55.3% field goal and 43.8% three-point shooting. Again, 13 points, 5 rebounds, 55.3% field goal, 44% for 3, including 55% from the corner. A random stat. Jaylen Brown has not committed a turnover in the post since the season, according to NBA.com. He scores 1.14 points per possession, 1.14 points per. And being realistic, Jaylen Brown will definitely finish in the top 5 race of the Rookie of the Year. Maybe not top 3, but top 5 certainly. Now, Jaylen Brown proved to be number 3 pick, wasn't as bad after all. And then he remember how strong you and me were forced to defend this poor guy because the Celtics fans were furious on Danny Ainge because he didn't give up pick number 3 to the Bulls in that Butler trade. Majority of the fans were asking me what I think about Brown. I answered that then, and you have, ladies and gentlemen, at the blogtalkradio.com, you have episode talking about our rookies. I said that I like this guy. I think he's athletic. He's the great out of transition. That is reminding me of D. Brown a little, that I really think that he's going to be good for us. I cannot say is he going to be a franchise player, but all-star certainly, and he will have huge upside. He's having huge upside potential, and I can see him be even better every year. Now, the conventional wisdom going into the 2016 draft was that if you didn't have top 2 picks, you should trade. Boston was picking third, and the fans were not happy with saving the pick, and B, not sure who to draft. With the names like Dunn, Kiss, all receiving support. Still, it was no surprise, shockingly, even more that the Boston Celtics picked up Brown. There were some boos after we picked up Brown, remember, at the Hall. Now, Brandon Ingram, who was drafted by the Lakers, joins exclusive club. Now, random statistics. Then, he is shooting a field goal percent 40% and less, 3 points 30% and less, and free throws 65% and less. And he's playing around 28 minutes or more. Wait, we were told Ingram was shorting. Yes, he's young and he should improve with experience. But having your shooting percentage fall within Ben Wallace's range is not a good look, not at all. Now, meanwhile, Jaylen has been contributing on winning team, number 2 East, and getting noticeably better every night. So take a look. We had a head-to-head comparison with Ingram, and Brown is better per 100 possession statistics, including advantage in both offensive and defensive rating. Want more? The Celtics should still be pleased with their number 3 pick. Since Bradley suffered the injury of Achilles January 16, Brown thrust in the he entered the starting lineup, and his average in 12 games like 14.5 points per 100 and 6.7 rebounds per 36 minutes, while he's showing 45% from the field, including 37.8% beyond the arc during that span. Now, he has shown flashes of the dynamic scorers. He might become entering free throws attempts at better rates than any Boston's player except Isaiah Thomas. With Brown feeling starter, the last month the Celtics went 10-0. And like I said, he didn't commit one turnover in the post in the season and scoring 1.14 points per possession down low. I know that the Lakers fans will say it's less than one season, small sample size, statistics can be shaped to make a point, etc., etc. Ingram has had highlights too, but one of those things are true. Nevertheless, it says there at this point, Jaylen Brown appears to be better of the two draft choices. And since the top pick, Simmons, didn't play a minute, we can say Brown is the best out of top 3 picks. Now, the Celtics the Celtics destroyed Los Angeles Lakers and head-to-head Brown destroyed Ingram. Now, Daniel, we must say and be fair at the end of this expertise about Brown. We must say that Dario Saric is probably top 1 candidate for the Rookie of the Year because he's playing great. We must say in the 37 or 38 games that he played that Embiid is better than Brown. But I would put Brown number 3 or number 4 based on the performance in this season. What is your take on Brown?
Well, I think, one thing everybody has to consider when it comes to this whole thing of who's Rookie of the Year is also, where the teams stand and also the type of, competition you got to be going at it with. Like, for example, you look at Brandon Ingram, you mentioned him playing for the Lakers. He's averaging 8.2 points per game, while Jaylen Brown right now is averaging 6.5. So that's less than, a bucket, really, less than 2 points difference between the two of them. But look at where the two teams sit. Brandon Ingram's team is nowhere near being a playoff team this season, while Jaylen Brown has played a key role in this team being the number 2 team in the East. Yeah, he may not be one of the top 3 reasons, but due to the injuries to Avery Bradley, to Jay Crowder, to Al Horford, Jaylen Brown has actually really been impressive. You could even see what he did basically with his, defense going toe-to-toe with LeBron James in that recent game against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Not too many rookies are capable of going toe-to-toe with LeBron and basically banging up against him and making LeBron turn into a jump shooter. So, yeah, people are going to say for you and me that we're only giving him that, that type of, appreciation and, consideration because we're Celtic fans. But come on. You mean to tell me that somebody who plays on a Los Angeles Lakers team who's only got 19 wins this season and averages just 2 points more deserves to have a better shot at Rookie of the Year compared to somebody whose team is basically at the second best team in the East, and some people feel that they might have a shot to be the number 1 team in the East, and he's played a key role. It's ridiculous in my opinion. I feel everything that goes on, the competition you got to play against overall. Jaylen Brown's got to be playing a bunch of games that are more, how would you say, he's got to play games that are more playoff intensity because of how many teams pretty much are fighting with us for playoff position. Look at what the Celtics just did to the Lakers recently. Like, come on. If your team is not fighting for playoff position, the games really don't mean nothing. So that really means pretty much your stats shouldn't really mean a damn thing whatsoever. So if I got to choose somebody out of a bunch of rookies, not only am I going to look at how closely the stats are, I'm going to look at what your team's record is and what you've had to put up with. Somebody from the Lakers shouldn't even be in consideration for this, especially when it's a 2-point difference. Now, the other name you mentioned, we got to – what was the other guy you said, Igor? After Ingram?
Dario Saric.
And he plays for what team, if I'm correct? I forgot the team he plays for. The what?
The 76ers.
The 76ers. Look, at another team that's not even close to being a playoff team and is also fighting pretty much for lottery position right now. Really. It would be a slap in the face, in my opinion, if Jaylen Brown, the only way that you could say someone like that guy truly deserves to be ahead of Jaylen Brown is if his stats were to basically be ahead of Jaylen Brown's by a major amount. And so now I'm going to his, page here, because again, Saric is averaging 11.6 points per game this season. So he's averaging 5 points more than what Jaylen Brown is thus far. So basically that's the difference. You got a guy who's got a team that only has 23 wins, but is averaging 11 points, to somebody who's averaging 6 points, but his team has 40 wins, and he's played a key role in why they've gotten that high. Again, it'll be a slap in the face, Igor, if Saric or Ingram wins Rookie of the Year over Jaylen Brown just because they average a few more points than him. Those guys weren't good enough to get their teams even into playoff positioning or even close to it. Yet Jaylen Brown, with all the injuries, has been able to step up and play a key role even as a starter when Brad Stevens has needed it. I think out of the last 13 games, 8 of those he's been able to score in double digits. Yeah. So come on, NBA analysts and people who vote, look at the entire story. Don't just look at the stats.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And we were talking, Danny, at the last 2 shows, especially trade deadline special, which is really recent. That this, Big Grusbeck on Felger and Mez. I'm going to pass through this story because it is very important. Again, the Celtics are going full speed towards building championship contender. Celtics managing partner, governor, and CEO Big Grusbeck joined Felger and Mez after the trade deadline, and he discussed about no trades on the trade deadline and the team's future plans. Grusbeck admitted that he's not a basketball guy, and he is delegate third questions to Ainge and Stevens. But he certainly has to say something whether the Celtics will not make a major trade or not. He said that the Celtics did try to make deals all the way up to the 3 p.m. Eastern on Thursday trade deadline. Now, this is February 23rd, but simply weren't able to agree on the deal with other team. He believes that the Celtics would have made a big trade if they believed in it, and he would have given them a chance to win NBA championship this year. But ultimately, they are 2 players away from getting to the contendership level. Not 1 player, but 2. Vic said, "I'm comfortable with standing pat because we didn't take 1 step forward and 2 steps back. We are going full speed as fast as we can that what we think is the next contending team. We aren't interested in winning a round or two this year. We would like to win the whole thing the next year. If we saw a trade yesterday, that would let us win the whole thing, we would have do it. But what we saw is some deals that we didn't want to do, and so we are going to keep our heads down and try to add 2 more impact players as soon as it is possible. Echoing Angie's comments, Grusbeck said that the Celtics are 2 impact players away from the contendership levels. And, 2 impact players likely coming in to form a high draft pick and max deal free agent. He disagrees with Felger and Maz's idea that the Celtics either need to cash in all the assets and say goodbye to contending for championship for the next years. What we all agreed is that so far that we are going to keep 2017 Brooklyn pick until the lottery and lease, and we're going to see where it shakes out. We could make a trade the pick after we make it. We can trade the pick on the draft night. We could trade a guy later. Let's say let's say we add a maximum free guy this summer. We pick a really good guy in the draft, and then in the February we add another impact player in the trade. Where did 2018 go in that plans? I don't understand how making draft pick is inconsistent with winning championship as soon as it is possible. I think you guys are a little black and white on the things. I mean, I'm enjoying listening to the comments, but I think there is middle ground. So this is from the Celtics owner, and John Karalis, our friend, added, as pissed I am about this year, never has been about this year. I'm not backing off, and this team can be better without hope, and I mean, we can have successful season. So what is your take on that?
Well, we all know that Felger and Maz are 2 guys that shouldn't be having the right to talk about Celtics basketball. So trust me, Danny, Rick Grossbeck telling them that they're black and white on the situation, that's just him being nice to them, because trust me, he could have said a lot worse, when it comes to basically explaining what those 2 are when it comes to talking Celtics basketball. But overall, when you look at that situation, again, any team that was going to give up their superstar was going to ask the Celtics for a major amount of assets, because as they say in the wrestling, Igor, giving up your superstar is bad for business. Giving up Paul George, Jimmy Butler is bad for business. You give up those guys, it's not going to allow you to basically jack up the prices for the tickets again for next season, because your team is not going to be in contendership, possibly not even for the playoffs, if you don't get a really good deal and a really good package in exchange. The jersey sales go down with all of that, so the money is not going to be coming in due to the fans basically not wanting to spend money on you because your team is basically a joke. You got to have a fan base that's truly loyal to your team, to the teams, in order to actually have that. And of course, Boston is basically one of the main cities for that. You ask the teams, the coaches, for the 4 sports teams out here, and the fans always remain loyal through and through. But there's many cities out there that don't have the fans that are like that. Many teams out there, many cities out there, their teams just have a bunch of bandwagon fans, and they'll jump off the bandwagon the moment your team is not able to compete for a playoff spot. But, that's the situation. The moment these teams were being asked to give up their superstars, they had to look at it the same way Danny Ainge was looking at the whole situation when he was talking about giving up Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce. He looked at it as basically what type of package would allow me to basically make this rebuilding situation go quickly. What would make it where we're not looking like a Philadelphia 76ers type team and going with their model of a rebuild and get us back into contention quickly. And look what he got. He asked for a major package from the Brooklyn Nets, and the Brooklyn Nets ended up paying it. So that's exactly what all the other teams right now, Indy, Chicago, Utah, when it comes to Gordon Hayward, they were all going to ask for the same type of deal because those teams are going to want to make it where they're back in contention quickly, because the more seasons that you're not in contention in those cities, the more money you're going to lose from the fans. So that's the situation with the packages. Now, when it comes to this summer, yeah, the Celtics will be in a better position, but we all got to remember, it all comes down to that draft lottery. If you get the number one pick in the draft, then you'll be able to have a situation where you can be telling a team like the Chicago Bulls for Butler, you're guaranteed to be given the number one pick this year, which means you can get a franchise-altering player of your choice. So you better not be thinking you're going to ask us for the same type of package you wanted at the trade deadline, which according to reports was Jay Crowder, Marcus Smart, and Avery Bradley, plus the Brooklyn pick. You wasn't going to get that from us in February, and you're not going to get that from us now, especially knowing you just wasted another year of Jimmy Butler's contract that we can't get back. So that's going to be a situation where Danny Ainge would all be saying, you use the excuse that the number one, that pick could be number 4, which is why you wanted such a big, package. Now that excuse has gone down the toilet and it's been flushed. So what's the excuse now for asking for such a big package? There is no excuse if you're the Chicago Bulls. So it's either A, you give it to us at a much more reasonable price, or we take that number one pick and we give it to somebody else that has a superstar that is willing to play for this team long term, and a team that's willing to basically give them up. So Danny Ainge is in the right position. But the only thing I agree with Felger and Maz on that audio, because of course I was able to hear the interview for that situation, for that interview with Vic Grossbeck, is that pretty much they're telling Wick that really you got to choose one or the other. You really can't have both. Either A, you got to go all in for trading the assets and getting the star players via trade, or you got to look long term and cash in those assets in the draft itself and look to wait for LeBron James to basically become a nice old person and make it where he's no longer a threat to you, and then you take over the Eastern Conference with those players. But you can't be looking to go at something mid-term where you're giving up assets for players, and then yet you can't get past LeBron James still, but then at the same time, you're in a position where once LeBron James is gone, you don't have no more assets available, and your team is basically no longer in a position to take advantage. So this is where Danny Ainge truly has to look at the whole situation. But again, this is where I said to you last time, Danny Ainge and Vic Grossbeck, they stuck their foot in their mouth by saying, we promise you fireworks. Knowing that fans here like me, Igor, I was still confident that we could have knocked off LeBron, Wade, and Bosh if we would have gotten another big-time player to help Garnett and Pierce. But Ainge didn't want to go that route. Well, Ainge, you basically made it where the fans who wanted to let those guys retire as Celtics, you made it where basically that was no longer going to happen. So now we're waiting. But still, you're in a position where this season, if you don't make the right, impression on the right people, it ain't going to mean a damn thing come the summer, whether you got that number one pick or not. because sure enough, if you don't make the right impression, unless you get a huge deal, like you remember what happened with Kevin Garnett, Igor. Garnett did not want to come here, but we were trying to make a trade for him.
Yeah.
He was not interested in coming to Boston. Ainge had to make a different move for Ray Allen first. That made it where Garnett finally said, okay, now you got my attention and I'm interested to go to you. That's the impression right now with you making it further in the playoffs that you got to make on these free agents. If you don't make the right impression, they're going to act the same way Kevin Garnett did back in 2007, where they're saying, I'm not interested to go to you if I can go to another team that might have a better shot to go at it with Cleveland or with Golden State, which means now you got to overpay because now you're the team that's in the desperate position. You got to overpay to get the superstar you need, whether it's Paul George, you overpay for 1 year of his service, or you overpay for Jimmy Butler, because every one of those teams are going to know you ain't got no free agent, big-time free agents in this case, interested in coming to you because you failed to make the right impression during the playoffs.
Okay, now, Danny, please open the statistics, and we are going to talk about the last 4 or 3 games. We will see. No Ulis special this time, no final moment collapse, but still another brutal loss. And wild shooting percentage there. We have the percent. It is hard to beat the team that is shooting 80.8%. Now, unfortunate turn of events from 40-28 mark in the third quarter until the end of the game. That means in the last 16.28 minutes, the Clippers scored 63 games and the Celtics scored 36. That means that we are outscored by 37 points in the last 16.28. The Celtics shot it 10 out of 22 field goals in that period, and Clippers shot it 21 out of 26 in that period, 80.8%. The Celtics shot it slightly below 50%. The Celtics shot it 3 of 10 3-pointers. Clippers shot it 7 out of 10 3-pointers. Rebounds 13 and 3 for Clippers. Turnovers 6 and 5 for Celtics. So Isaiah Thomas Boston lose big second half lead. There was no Tyler Ulis player this time, no collapse, but Monday night against the Los Angeles Clippers, the Boston Celtics fell apart earlier in the second half. One day after near impossible loss to Phoenix Suns, the Celtics tumbled into 116-102. Disaster after allowing Jamal Crawford to take their 13-point second half lead, snapped it over his leg and throwing it through the window. During the 5-minute stretch spanning the third and fourth, the high-scoring six-man drilled 3 threes and drove by Kelly Olynyk for a bucket, found DeAndre Jordan 15 points and 12 rebounds, rolling to the hoop and isolated James Young for a pull-up jumper, and that helped a charge to 31-10 Clippers run, which took less than 6 minutes. Though Chris Paul 23 points and Blake Griffin 26 points and 8 rebounds scored their share of points early, the Celtics held everybody else in the check until the third. Then Brad Stevens called in a weird lineup: Terry Rozier, Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, James Young, and Jordan Mickey. And the Crawford 19 points went nuts. This is not coincidence. In Brad Stevens' defense, injuries led him with depleted roster, and Crawford hit 2 tough off-the-dribble threes in his 9 points outburst at the end of the quarter. He has always hit difficult shots, but those came at rough time as the Celtics already reeling, allowing their 11-0 run to the end of the period. Up 66-53 earlier in the third, they trailed 75-71 by the time of the fourth arrived. Los Angeles needed less than 10 minutes of the game to slam together 41-14 run, which ended against dangerous tiny Boston lineup. Jay Crowder, 6'6" forward against DeAndre Jordan, center. The Celtics held their ground for a while without Horford and Jerebko. That absence countered depth, but they got gashed in the second half, especially when Stevens called on his smallest and most inexperienced lineups. Boston fell behind by 18 points, before some Thomas buckets and the fast break points, and we depleted that lead. But Thomas finished the night with 32 points, 10 of 19 shooting. Without Horford elbow and Jerebko flu, the Celtics started Jaylen Brown on the wing and Crowder at the power forward. That set up obvious size mismatch everywhere in the front court for Clippers duo Jordan and Griffin that can punish every biggest guy. They can punish even biggest guys. In the danger zone, the Celtics' poor rebounding team to begin with did it. Later, I have lineups analysis, but now, after scanning through the lineups, I believe Rozier, Smart, Brown, Young, Mickey hadn't played yet before the third quarter. Now, what can you tell us about the statistics, Daniel? One, 102, 116, 102.
So 116, 102, the Clippers win. You had, for the Celtics, Isaiah Thomas finish once again as the leading scorer with 32 points in 35 minutes. He went 10 of 19 from the field goal, 4 of 8, which was from downtown, 2 rebounds, 5 assists. Then you had Marcus Smart lead as the second leading scorer. He was the leading scorer off the bench, though. 21 points, 32 minutes. He went 6 of 12 from the field, 1 of 5 from downtown, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. The only other player to make it into double digits was Avery Bradley, who scored 14 points in 26 minutes, 5 of 12 from the field, 1 of 3 from downtown, 3 rebounds, 1 assist. Then after that, the next high scorer was Jay Crowder with 9 points in 35 minutes, 3 of 13 shooting, 1 of 7 from the three-point area, 8 rebounds, 2 assists. Then it was Jaylen Brown, who had 8 points in 26 minutes, again filling in for Al Horford as a starter. 3 of 5 from the field, 1 of 2 from three-point area, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. Then you had Amir Johnson, who scored 6 points in 24 minutes, 2 of 5 from the field, no three-pointers whatsoever, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. Then you had Kelly Olynyk, who scored only 4 points in 20 minutes, 2 of 6 from the field, 0 of 2 from downtown, 7 rebounds, 2 assists. Terry Rozier had 5 points, 20 minutes, 2 of 7 from the field, 1 of 4 from the three-point area, 2 rebounds, 2 assists. And then James Young was the only other player to score anything, as he scored 3 points in 13 minutes, 1 of 4 from the field, which that one shot was a three-pointer made, 1 rebound, 0 assists. Mickey and Tyler Zeller both played. Neither one of them scored a darn thing. Tyler Zeller had 1 rebound and 1 assist and 3 fouls in just 6 minutes of action. Mickey had absolutely nothing, no rebounds, no assists, no fouls, no points in 3 minutes. Gerald Green did not play at all yesterday. Then when it came to the Clippers, their leading scorer was Blake Griffin, who scored 26 points yesterday in 36 minutes. 8 of 15 from the field, 1 of 3 from downtown, 8 rebounds, 3 assists. Then Chris Paul was second with 23 points, 30 minutes, 8 of 14 from the field, 1 of 3 from downtown, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. Then Jamal Crawford was the next high scorer off the bench, 19 points in 29 minutes, 6 of 13 from the field, 4 of 5 from beyond the arc, 1 rebound, 5 assists. Then DeAndre Jordan had 15 points in 28 minutes, 6 of 7 from the field, 12 rebounds, 0 assists. Then it was Spikes who scored 8 or actually Felton, who was the next highest at 9 points in 20 minutes, 2 of 3 from the field, 3 rebounds, 5 assists. Then it was Spikes with 8 points in 15 minutes, 3 of 6 from the field, 1 of 4 from three-point area, 8 rebounds, 0 assists. Then Austin Rivers with 7 points in 32 minutes, 2 of 4 from the field, 1 three-pointer made, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. Then Mahamute with 4 points in 15 minutes, 2 of 4 from the field, 0 for 1 from three-point area, 3 rebounds, 1 assist. Then it was Redick who scored only 3 points in 18 minutes, 1 of 5 from the field, 1 of 2 from the three-point area, 2 rebounds, 2 assists. And then the last person to score was Johnson with 2 points in 16 minutes, 1 of 2 from the field, 0 for 1 from downtown, 2 rebounds, 0 assists. Bass, Pierce, and Anderson did not play at all in this game.
Excellent stuff. And Danny, we have, Isaiah Thomas speaks out against Boston Celtics experimentation. Did the Boston Celtics star have a point? Does it matter? By Jay King. Isaiah Thomas caused on Monday real discussions by hinting he disliked the Boston Celtics lineup choices during the second half collapse against the Clippers. Should he have held his frustration inside? Did he have points? Will his comments become a major locker room issue? Let's discuss. First, let's acknowledge it's completely rational to believe both of these things. Number one, Stevens tried some quirky lineups in the second. Number two, Thomas still should have done better job hiding his frustration about the rotations. Near the end of third, Stevens called for the most inexperienced group that consists out of Rozier, Smart, Brown, Young, Mickey. Even without Al Horford elbow and Jerebko flu, and with a bit of foul trouble in the remaining frontcourt depth, that's one of the least appealing lineups that the Celtics put on the floor. In evidence, Stevens probably understands that, and he had not played those 5 guys together once this season before Monday night, according to NBAbox.com. With teeny frontcourt, Stevens probably wanted to steal some minutes before returning his regular lineups in the game. The lead was still semi-comfortable, 7 points, and Celtics didn't need to be great enter the fourth with an advantage. Simply by avoiding disaster, they would have held a slim margin entering the fourth, and they have been elite this season in the holding the leads. Stevens never could have anticipated the Jordan Crawford going bonkers to lift the Clippers in one unstoppable run. The guard would have gotten hot against anyone, but the lineup didn't have limits to his opportunity, and it didn't help Boston respond once he went on a string of 3-pointers. By the time Stevens switched the lineup, the Clippers had gone into 8-1 run in 1:10 left. Crawford was hotter than Pistol, and all the Celtics control had burned to death. They outplayed Los Angeles for most of the first 3 quarters, but allowing 43-14 run over the last 6 minutes of the second half. Another Stevens lineup went bad later. With 680 deficit early in the fourth, we cut the lead to 86-80 deficit. But the coach tried Crowder at the center against the group featured DeAndre Jordan at the center. Stevens explained basically he thought Crowder could manage Jordan in extent, switching lineup would help, and going super small could boost the struggling Celtics offense. Instead of that, Clippers and Jordan went on 8-0 run, and the Clippers had 2 dunks and a layup in the next 2 minutes. With no real size anywhere, the Celtics failed in the rotation once Crowder left Jordan to help penetration elsewhere. With Horford and Jerebko, the Celtics could have fielded with size while maintaining their skilled level and ability to switch. Even without those 2 guys, they still had options in Olynyk and Johnson. Now, that said, it's tough to field when trying to field versatile lineup without 2 of their 3 most versatile big. And it's easy to blame a lineup when the things go brutally wrong. With a little sharp effort, the Celtics might have gotten a couple of stops and used all their speed shooting around. Instead, Jordan punished them. And Thomas pointed out we can't be experimenting in the game 64. I'm not concerned. It's just not the way we lost. It's not acceptable. We lost the game in the last 15 minutes of the game. We played a really good game until the last 15 minutes, and that's the player's fault. The coach's fault. That's everybody in the locker's fault. We could have done it better. Despite any issues with the Stevens rotation, the fringe MVP candidate could have handled his frustration better privately. Sharing those thoughts with the media, even if they're completely valid, didn't just throw Stevens under the bus, but it did the same with the players. And it created headache for the Celtics. Don't need any possible tensions in the locker room. One can understand Thomas' obviously pain after the loss. The Celtics have now earned back-to-back brutal losses, and their margin for Eastern Conference second place is gone. And with the meeting up with the Golden State Warriors. In the way, the Stars give a bleep level is admirable. And someone, the Celtics front office, told me when Crowder snapped earlier this season over cheers for Gordon Hayward, it's much better to have the guy who cares that much. This isn't the first time Thomas has questioned the coach's decisions. The good news is Stevens refuses to overreact that news. Now, with Horford returning soon and favorable schedule after the end of the trip, the Celtics could still be considered favorites to grab number 2 seed. This won't be a big deal in the locker room as it is in the Twitter, but it's a minor speed bump that could have been avoided with more sensible lineup choices, better play from the players on the court, and wisdom after the game ends. Something to add on the lineup choices, Danny?
Well, we said it earlier, that the situation here is that he, as you said, we had not seen that lineup before, or at least we can't even remember when we had saw it. And you put it in a matchup, in a game technically, where you're facing a star-loaded Clippers team. If you want to go the route of actually putting a lineup like that where you're not even sure if it's really going to work out or not, you don't put it against a team that's got a bunch of superstars that if you give them the thought that they can basically take momentum over and actually put you away, you go ahead and do it. You do it against a team that if they move ahead of you, that team knows deep down in their own mind that this team, we're not good enough really to actually think that we can take our foot off the gas pedal, because technically this team can still come back and beat us because we're really not that good. You went the route, again, with 2 mistakes putting a lineup that not only have we not seen before, but also putting another lineup later on that had no big man. You did it against a team at a time where you got one of the, in my opinion, like Stephen A. Smith said, one of the guys that the moment he gets hot in Jamal Crawford, you're not going to stop him. Unless you give the guy a nice punch in the face and knock him out, he is going to continue to shoot and continue to nail shot after shot, and it pretty much doesn't matter where from the court. You can question, did Brad Stevens read the scouting report? Did he look at any highlights at what these guys from the Clippers are capable of, especially Crawford? Some could argue Crawford could be the most dangerous player on that team. And you decide to go to a lineup that basically is going to have him having an advantage. If Marcus Smart or Avery Bradley is not there to stop him, he's going to have the advantage against every other player that's on the court for you. So again, this is not the team you should be looking to make experiments with and hope and pray that it actually works. The game against Phoenix is the game you should have been trying that out against, because if you got the giant lead and Phoenix somehow comes back, your boys can come back in, and odds are you go right back up. You do that against the Clippers, odds are you're not going to catch up because you gave them too much momentum and you let them know they got a shot to beat you. And you got their guys already too hot. So Brad Stevens, I truly hope that he basically chooses 10 players the rest of the way and sticks with it. True, we already know our top 5, Avery Bradley, Thomas, Crowder, Horford, Johnson. After that, choose your next 5 players and stick to them the rest of the season. Unless it's an injury situation that makes it where one of those guys can't play or one of the guys is out due to being sick, so you got to replace him with somebody else for that game. Unless it's that, you stick with the same guys game in and game out. Because you got to get these guys not only in a position where they're basically trusting themselves, but they're trusting in each other, so that once you get to the playoffs, they are prepared and they are also really familiar with each other to go toe-to-toe with these other teams. Switching up the lineups one day or one game after another is not going to help.
Excellent stuff, and I would add to your talk that, in my opinion, the bench should be based on based on the performances. Smart, then Gerald in the playoffs. Smart, Gerald Green, Jaylen Brown, then Jonas Jerebko and Kelly Olynyk. I'm putting Terry Rozier to number 11. I'm putting Tyler Zeller to number 12, and that's it. But I totally agree with you, and I'm all up for Brad Stevens to stop experimentation and continue with it. Daniel, we have one unpleasant duty to discuss about the Phoenix Suns game at the end, and you will tell the statistics. And now we lost 106-109. Tyler Ulis dagger had a dagger against us in the last seconds of the game. Now Isaiah Thomas had 35 points, 14 points in the fourth, 5 assists. Crowder, double-double, 16 points, 10 rebounds. Phoenix Suns, Eric Bledsoe, torched us, 28 points, 6 rebounds, 9 assists. And Tyler Ulis killed us with 20 points, 5 assists, including the dagger. Points in the paint, Suns, 52, Celtics, 32. We played without Al Horford. Second chance points, Suns, 19, Celtics, 9. We were outrun. This is not excusable. This is inexcusable. Now, The Celtics had 120 defensive rating with Isaiah Thomas on the floor. But one minor note, Avery Bradley and Horford didn't play today. The bright spot is Terry Rozier. 14 points off the bench, 5 of 9 field goal percent, 3-pointers 4 of 5, and 4 rebounds. Career high 14 points and I think even field goal percentage. Now, the growth potential of Jaylen Brown. Since the All-Star break, not including Clippers game, Brown is 13.2 points per game, field goal percent 54.5%, 3 points field goal percent 47.1%, and rebounds per game 5.2 rebounds per game, 25.8 minutes per game. I will repeat, 13 points per game, 54.5% field goal, 47% for 3, rebounds per game 5.2, and minutes per game 26. Now, I can only laugh to all those fans which were doubtful that, they were saying like, Brown cannot shoot, he will never become a reliable player, and the Celtics believed in Brown, and you see how he shooting. Now, Jaylen Brown takes the blame for the final turnover. He said that he should have thrown the pass to Isaiah Thomas earlier. Also, he said turnover was his fault. Tyler Ulis' final stat line, 33 points, 33 minutes, 8 of 12, shooting 20 points, 5 assists, 2 steals, 3 for 3 from the line, 0 turnovers. Celtics had 120 defensive rating with Isaiah on the floor today. And the Celtics can't win consistently without Isaiah Thomas. The Celtics cannot win consistently without having the full lineup. Now, this was just preposterous ending. What can you tell us about the statistics then?
In this game, you had Isaiah Thomas finished with 35 points in 32 minutes, 10 of 25 from the field, 5 of 12 from three-point land, 2 rebounds, 5 assists. Then you had Jay Crowder finish second when it comes to scoring with 16 points in 33 minutes, 6 of 10 from the field, 2 of 5 from downtown, 10 rebounds, 1 assist. Then both Brown and Rozier tied for third with 14 points. Brown did it in 30 minutes at 4 of 8 shooting, 1 of 1 from the three-point area, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. Rozier did it in 20 minutes, 5 of 9 from the field, 4 of 5 from beyond the arc, 4 rebounds, 0 assists. Then Amir Johnson had 13 points in 27 minutes, 5 of 11 from the field, 1 of 3 from downtown, 8 rebounds, 3 assists. Then Marcus Smart had 11 points in 28 minutes, 1 of 5 from the field, 0 of 3 from downtown, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. Then you had, from there, the next high scorer was Gerald Green, who scored only 2 points in 15 minutes, 1 of 5 from the field, 0 of 3 from downtown, 4 rebounds, 0 assists. And then Jerebko scored only 1 point in 20 minutes, 0 of 4 from the field, 0 of 3 from downtown, 5 rebounds, 1 assist. Then you had 3 guys, Mickey, Zeller, and Olynyk, who all scored 0 points. Olynyk, 0 points in 22 minutes, 4 rebounds, 1 assist. Zeller, 0 points in 6 minutes, 5 rebounds, 0 assists. Mickey, 0 points in 9 minutes, 3 rebounds, 2 assists. Then you had the Suns. Bledsoe led the team with 28 points in 35 minutes, 9 of 20 from the field, 2 of 5 from three-point area, 6 rebounds, 9 assists. Then you had Ulis with 20 points in 33 minutes, 8 of 12 from the field, 1 of 1 from the three-point area, which was the game-winning shot, 2 rebounds, 5 assists. Then it was Booker who scored the next highest, 16 points in 27 minutes, 5 of 10 from the field, 1 of 3 from downtown, 5 rebounds, 0 assists. Then it was Warren with 14 points in 32 minutes, 6 of 10 from the field, 0 of 2 from three-point, 7 rebounds, 1 assist. Then you had Williams, who scored 11 points in 31 minutes, 5 of 12 from the field, 15 rebounds, 0 assists. Then Chris scored 10 points in 25 minutes, 5 of 9 from the field, 0 of 3 from downtown, 6 rebounds, 0 assists. Then Len scored 8 points in 13 minutes, 3 of 7 from the field, 0 three-pointers made, 2 rebounds, 1 assist. Then Barbosa was the last guy to score, 2 rebounds, 13 in 13 minutes, 1 of 8 from the field, 0 of 2 from three-point area, 3 rebounds, 0 assists. Both Jones Jr. and Dudley scored nothing. Dudley went 18 minutes with no points, 0 from 6 from the floor, 0 from 4 from the three-point area with 4 rebounds, while Jones Jr. took no shots whatsoever, also had no rebounds and no assists.
Excellent stuff, Danny. And now the last game recap for tonight. Isaiah Thomas kicks the ball away and allows ridiculous Tyler Ulis game winner. Tyler Ulis from Kentucky Wildcats. Boston Celtics fall to Phoenix Suns 109-106. During the span of 3 hours, Sunday afternoon, the Celtics looked incompleted for long stretch, pulled themselves out of the big deficit, placed themselves in position to steal a victory from Phoenix Suns, and then lost in one of the season's most preposterous endings. The Celtics got spread by insanity, 109-106, despite leading by 2 points in the final seconds after Eric Bledsoe tied the score on the layup with 4 seconds left. Isaiah Thomas kicks away, ensuring in bounce pass, allowing Suns point guard Tyler Ulis to drain a walk-off three-pointer. In probable sequence, the Boston, which has looked almost promised, at least a trip to overtime, staring a potential rough road trip. Avery Bradley was out, Horford was out, and the couple of players nursing their injuries to Los Angeles against Clippers, to Oakland against Warriors, and to Denver against the Nuggets. After falling behind 15 points, the Celtics surged back towards the end of the third, thanks largely to the bench. Smart earned some points while posting TJ Warren, who is several inches taller than Smart, and Jordan Mickey played rare minutes, blocked a shot, and Terry Rozier, who had a nice game, 14 points, pumped up back-to-back threes, and the team get closer within 4 points by the start of fourths. Now, from there until the match finished, the plot looked familiar. Thomas 35 points, including 14, scored a load of points. Smart delivered some noticeable hustle plays, and the Celtics looked like they would emerge with another close victory. Instead, they met madness and harsh defeat. The rough first half, early in the quarter, Thomas in the first delivered one of the most confident moments. They drained a three-pointer from the corner. He spun around full 180%, celebrating the jumper. But that moment before, the Celtics, start to play badly. Zeller was sick, gave the Celtics most unhealthy minutes. And to tell the truth, I got sick watching him. The big man threw a pass that fielded to avoid his defender, botched a point-blank layup, delivered outlet pass to the wrong squad, got blocked to the putback layup, and it seems cruel to single him out, though, because the Celtics missing Bradley and Horford were dreadful a while in the first, while almost as many turnovers, 10 as They had 10 turnovers in the first and 13 field goals. This is very bad. They shoot 27% during the first and only little better 33 during the second, while they are having impressively difficult time to score on layup, which is unbelievable. According to NBA.com, the Celtics hit only 2 of 13 attempts at the rim during the first half. 2 out of 13 attempts at the rim in the first half, which should be impossible. For example, if they had Bill Russell. Imagine Bill Russell missed, 11 out of 13 dunks. The Suns struggled for a long time, but Ulis 20 points, 5 assists, and Devin Booker 16 points despite foul troubles, gave the Celtics 49-42 halftime deficits with some second quarter shoots. The young guards, including Bledsoe, Ulis, Booker, all damaged Boston, and Marquise Chris delivered 10.6 rebounds, 5 blocks. The Celtics still took a lead with the Crowder's layup in the final minutes and looked poised to hold on, but Thomas missed one of the 2 free throws. Bledsoe, 28 points, 9 assists, tied the score, and Ulis drained a game winner, and the Celtics never responded. And the shooting charts, again, I think in the first half, and Danny, we shot it 15.4% at the rim, 2 out of 13. And we shot it 2 of 3 for threes from the perimeter, 66.7%. And we shot it from the left corner, left elbow for 3, 1 of 7. From the right, 1 of 4. From the left corner, 1 of 2 for 3. For the right corner, 2 of 3 for 3. And this is how we lost. Something to add on this preposterous game.
Unfortunately, when it comes to that game, we all know for a fact, if Horford or Bradley had played in that game, Bradley being the key one, we probably would have won. But again, there is no excuse for losing that game. Now, I also think this is something because many people seem to be saying after the game that the team actually felt that they had a timeout. And if you look at Isaiah, he kind of looked like he was looking towards Brad Stevens to actually kind of say, are you going to call a timeout? And unfortunately, Crowder had to rush the pass in to make sure they avoided the 5-second violation. Because, of course, if you don't get it within 5 seconds into the inbound, you end up losing the ball. The other team gets it. And Isaiah, by the time Crowder actually inbounded it, hadn't turned his head around in time to actually prepare himself. That, in my opinion, is something that Brad Stevens also could be blamed about, because technically he should have actually made it clear to the team the position they were in. Especially, you know for a fact, there's no Avery Bradley. You know you're going to give the ball to Isaiah on that last possession. So, Isaiah's not going to be one of those guys standing right there, when it's time to actually go the route of, how would you say, making the defense on Bledsoe. Unfortunately, I felt the Celtics should have actually fouled on that last play. Foul Bledsoe and try to make sure, because think, they let him get through like there was absolutely no problem. They let him get right to the rim. He got an easy layup. You're telling me, again, a 2 is better than giving up a 3 there. But come on, there's got to be some sort of contest at the rim there. And again, who was it that was protecting the rim? Was it Amir Johnson? No. Was it Al Horford? No. It was Kelly Olynyk. Again, standing there like he's basically, stuck in cement and can't move whatsoever. Just looking at Bledsoe as he got right by him and watches as the ball goes up, off the glass and in. put your hand up. Look to actually swipe at the ball. In a play like that, you know, I'd rather have you hit the guy and make it where he doesn't get a layup. As long as you're not giving up a three-point play, a foul there is not going to hurt us. But no, not only am I going to make it where I'm not going to basically stop him from scoring, I'm going to make it where I'm not even going to contest, period. Like, really. That right there, to me, shows how bad on defense Olynyk is. It's bad enough earlier in the game. We saw some pretty bad defense and rebounding, situation from him. But you're telling me, if it was Amir Johnson, he would at least put his hand up and made it where Bledsoe's coming? Fine. I'm going to put my hand up. You're going to have to throw it up and over my hand and hope it hits the glass and goes in. But no, Olynyk just stays standing there and lets the guy get right by him. Like, basically, I ain't got nothing to worry about. I'm not going to bother even trying. And then look what happens. I think Brad Stevens, it's unfortunate that there was no timeout, because if Olynyk would have actually fouled there, he could have informed Thomas, we ain't got a timeout. So you better make sure you guys get the ball inbounded, because we do not want to have the ball lost in any sort of way. But, again, the issue here, many people will blame Thomas, but I don't blame Thomas whatsoever, because, come on, if it wasn't for Thomas, you're not even in the position to actually win that game to begin with.
Yeah. Just to add at your elaboration, I totally agree with everything you said. I just think that, of course, Olynyk just allowed the layup for Bledsoe. And we didn't have the timeout. Stevens called timeout in the last 11 seconds. Okay, now that was the issue. He could not advance the ball after Bledsoe tied. Okay, now it was Kelly's pass from Crowder to Thomas. And Thomas was not informed, obviously, that we don't have the timeout. And Thomas was kind of looking at the bench. Should I call timeout? And when he received the informations that we don't have timeout, he obviously had intention to let the ball roll as long as it is possible before he pick up the ball. Okay? Now, unfortunately, Ulis was monitoring that situation. And when Thomas tried to pick up the ball, he was careless too, and he stole that ball from Thomas. Thomas' intention was to let the ball go, to catch it, and to have as best possible shooting position as he can in that situation. And again, it was terrible execution from all five players at the end of the game, and I really hope that I will never be forced to watch something like this from this Celtics team.
Well, you said it there, Igor. You said the key information. We called a timeout with 11 seconds left. Who is it? Whose responsibility is it to keep track of how many timeouts we have left? The coach. You're telling me with 11 seconds left, you get basically the opportunity to score. You're telling me you can't inform your guys that this was our last timeout, so you got to make sure you get the ball in so that they know next time around when they got the ball, we don't got a timeout available. Trust me, Thomas is not an idiot. He doesn't have short-term memory, something like that. If you tell Thomas, we ain't got no more timeouts left. Thomas, Marcus Smart, those guys will know what that means. These guys are professional players, which that means in all likelihood, Brad Stevens, either A, he wasn't keeping track of the timeouts himself, which means he was irresponsible, or B, he was irresponsible by not letting them know this was our last timeout. Because if you let the guys know this is the last timeout left, so we ain't got no more available, they would know what has to be done when it comes time to inbounding that ball. Which means you don't have Isaiah Thomas looking one way when the ball's coming from the opposite direction, and at the same time, maybe that means Crowder will actually be thinking, Thomas is in front of me, but he's got Ulis right behind him. I can't advance the ball. Maybe that means I should wait for somebody else who's probably going to come running down because they know if we don't get it in, the ball gets turned over right back to Phoenix. Which means Brad Stevens and the coaching staff, not only Brad Stevens, but the rest of the coaches on that team failed to inform our guys. So again, you can blame the players, but that loss goes squarely on the head of the coaches, along with the game last night against the Clippers.
Of course, and for the end of this show, what do you think? We covered pretty much everything until, I hope, until Saturday, when the next show will be, Saturday 11th, 7 p.m. Eastern, against our special guest, Rich Jensen from RedZarmy.com. And until then, we have the two games. I'm trying to load my Celtics schedule. Here it is tomorrow in Oakland. We had information, Danny, that probably Horford will play 10:30 p.m. Eastern against Golden State Warriors. Of course, we lost from them the first game in Boston, and it is 1-0 for Golden State Warriors. We lost 88-104 with Thomas Ford 18 points, Rozier 5 assists, and Bradley 10 rebounds. So I don't know the situation about Jerebko, but Bradley and Horford should be playing tomorrow. And like I said, we are tied loss column with Wizards. Every game matters now. And the Wizards are tied. I really hope that they will lose. And we will inform you. So what can you tell us about Warriors and Nuggets? And Nuggets Friday, March 10th. And we're going to have show Saturday after Nuggets game and discuss about Warriors Nuggets games. This is Saturday, 11th March, 7 p.m. Eastern, our next show. We are ending this trip on which we are 1-2 with the games in Oakland Arena and Pepsi Center, Denver. Denver have my guy Jokic, who will be probably the most improved player in the NBA, as I heard. And but overall, that game because they are not good basketball team. And Golden State Warriors don't have Kevin Durant, so maybe for the Pacers. And if Celtics decide to play a real basketball game, 48 minutes. Maybe we will have the chance to win it. But overall, I'm looking at 1. What can you say?
Well, when it comes to this situation, I don't think we're going to have much to worry about when it comes to the game against Denver. The real question right now is the game against Golden State in this situation. And, of course, as you mentioned, Durant's not going to play, which that, of course, is a big thing in our favor. You know, the question now is really with Avery Bradley, everybody has to remember, you're looking at pretty much facing the same Warriors team now that you were facing last year without Kevin Durant there. You know, Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. It's the same situation that you were in last season.
But they don't have the now. Sorry to correct you, Danny, but they don't have depth now. They lost the bench guys. They lost Harrison Barnes. They lost Maurice Spites. I'm not sure somebody else from the bench. Their bench is completely weaker.
Well, that's what exactly, which is what I was about to say. That technically the only difference here right now is the fact that you got Al Horford now, which means your team is better than what it was last season, which means technically you cannot look at the Celtics team and say they ain't got a shot. We beat them last season, and they were a much more better team last season than what they'll be tomorrow. Kevin Durant is what makes that team better this season than last season, despite what the record says overall. So now that you got Avery Bradley back, you got Marcus Smart, you got Horford playing, this Celtics team will have a shot to win tomorrow, knowing that technically it is truly going to come down to Klay Thompson, Curry, and Draymond Green having to do most of the work. The question will be, pretty much, who outside of our regulars, who outside of Horford, Thomas, Bradley, and Smart is going to show up? Is Olynyk finally going to go back to normal and start making his three-pointers? Is it going to be Jonas Jerebko? Somebody else is going to have to basically step up and make this game a situation where our top four players are not going to have to try and do it on their own. You know, of course you got Crowder. So, you know, Thomas, Bradley, Crowder, Horford, and Smart, a part of me feels those five guys are going to have to do it all tomorrow. And if that's the case, we probably aren't going to win. So somebody else has to step up.
We don't have information. Is Jerebko with flu going to play? I certainly hope that he's going to play. Or I hope that Stevens will give those minutes not to Tyler Zeller but Jordan Mickey, because Jordan Mickey is contributing more lately when he steps on the floor than Tyler Zeller. Tyler Zeller was hard to watch in Phoenix.
Yeah.
Anyway,
and I say also, this is the game where you take James Young out and you give Gerald Green the right to play, because we all know Gerald Green has more years in this league. James Young is not going to get the respect he deserves defending someone like Stephen Curry or Klay Thompson. Gerald Green is more likely to get that respect and get a non-call. So you got to go and give Gerald Green the right to play.
And Gerald Green is better player. Like I said, in my opinion, he's top 10, and James Young is number 13. He's good as gone when the season is over. So I agree with you. I expect 1-1, 0-2 would be brutal, 2-0 would be super, and we will talk about that Saturday. It was amazing chat. I hope that all of you that are watching the chat will be satisfied, because we gave our best in the last 3 hours or so. And just to mention that you can find us at subscribe to YouTube channel, Celtics Talk Radio YouTube channel. Our broadcasting platform and station is blogtalkradio.com. Search for the Celtics Talk Radio. Our Twitter name, Celtics Talk Radio, STR capital letters. And then Celtics Talk Radio official Facebook page. All information's there. We Blood Green Celtics Fans Forum, our other page at the Facebook. And you can listen our radio shows on iTunes. Search for Celtics Talk Radio at the iTunes, and you can find all informations about the shows in the Instagram. We have followers at the Instagram. We are thankful to them, and thanks for all supports, thanks for all listenings, and we are existing and working just for you. And this was a live Facebook video chat with Danny and Igor number 9. You can watch it at our YouTube channel. Again, subscribe. You will get more material coming to the playoffs. And tomorrow, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, I will do live play-by-play from Oakland, Golden State Warriors, Boston Celtics, the game for enjoying. Until then, take care about yourselves and root for the Celtics. Danny?
Yeah, like you said, I think we go 1-1. You know, I doubt we'll go 0-2, so it's 1-1 or 2-0 for us. And again, you know, Brad Stevens, now's the time to make your final decisions for this roster. Final rotations, and stick with it. Because the more rotations he basically tries to make, the more difficult it's going to be for our guys to go in with any momentum into the playoffs.
Okay, this is the end.